How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.
this the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? Oh, I'm burning in the stone yet. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone yet. This is the final genocide. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the stone yet. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone yet. This is the final
Marky got with Sharon, and Sharon got Sharia. She was sharing Sharon's outlook on the topic of disease. Mikey had a facial scar and Bobby was a racist. They were all in love with dying, they were doing it in Texas. Tommy played piano like a kid out in the rain, and then he lost his leg in Dallas. He was dancing with the train. They were all in love with dying, they were drinking from a fountain that was pouring like an avalanche coming down the mountain.
I don't mind the sun sometimes, the images it shows. I can taste you on my lips and smell you in my clothes.
What up, everyone? Happy Tuesday. Why does it keep... I like it like that better, where I have a little border around my screen. I don't know why it stopped doing that when it added me to the stage, but I guess, okay, we're here. We're here. We don't need to worry about how we got here. We just need to congratulate ourselves on making it. Hey, guys. Welcome to The Cult. The Cult is a show that I stream Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube, on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, and on Rumble, where we talk about whatever I feel like talking about on any given day. Usually we find ourselves doing deep dives into the radical revolutionary far left, and that is what we're going to do today. Now, I know everyone's talking about the congressional hearings, about the signal groups, and are they real or are they fake, or was it a scam to try to scam the media? I don't know what's going on with those signal groups. I don't really care what's going on with those signal groups. You know what? I'm kind of in a place right now. Is anyone else in this place where I'm like, the day-to-day minutia of politics could not interest me less right now. Like, I really just don't care. I don't care. And maybe that's not like the popular position to have, but it's all fake and it's all gay. It's all fake and gay and stupid and fake and gay and dumb and fake and gay. All of it. I don't believe any of these people. I think that everyone is just in a perpetual contest to posture for the clout and the status and the titles and how close they can get to Trump and all this stuff. And it's just, it could not interest me less. But do you know what does interest me? The far left. Why? The far left's actually interesting. The far left is real. The far left is dystopian AF. And I gotta tell you guys, I've been working on some things in the past couple days. Does anyone else feel this? It's Aries season. For people who don't know, I am an Aries. I know this is a resounding shock to everyone that has ever watched my content, but I am an Aries. That means I am rather I'm very me focused. I'm very selfish. I'm also a little troublemaker, shit starter, fire starter, rabble rouser, whatever you want to call it. I also have Pluto in my first house, which means I'm very, very explosive as a personality, and I have a Leo moon, which means that maybe I'm a little hyperbolic and showy at times. And you know what? Like, here's the thing. It is Aries season, all right? It is Aries season. We are in my month of narcissism. And I just feel like everything is coming together. And I gotta tell you guys, it's like, do you guys know how I have like 50 billion projects? I have a project for everything. And I have the full intent on seeing many of those projects through, and then some of them get lost in the shuffle because I have more projects. Because I'm an Aries, and I have just idea after idea after idea after idea after idea, and I want to do all of them because they're all great. But I've had an epiphany. Do you guys know when it's like the perfect storm in your life where like you feel like you've got all this random stuff around you and all of these different things that have gone on, but there comes a moment where the universe winks. The universe winks and it smiles at you and it says to you, you know, all that crazy stuff that you've been working on for years and years and years, it's all interconnected and it's all related. And then it all starts to come together, and then the universe delivers you the keystone. You guys know, like when like in an arch, like in the arch of like St. Louis or whatever. If you have an arch, at the very top of an arch is like the keystone, and the keystone is what holds the arch together. And the universe just hands you a keystone and says, "Here it is. You've had all these different inspirations over the years. You've done all these different things. You have all this. You have a really weird subset of knowledge, because can we acknowledge that I do have an exceptionally weird subset of knowledge? But you know what? All these things work together. And now everything that you've done over the last 20 years of your life is about to come together into one core moment where everything is going to feed into this one thing. That is the keystone that I have discovered, that has been gifted to me by the universe. You want to know why? Because it's Aries season. What is that keystone, you ask? I'm not ready to tell you yet, okay? I'm not ready yet. But I'm like this close. We're getting close. I'm like this far away from being able to tell you guys. But it's just like, man, never doubt that life is taking you in a very specific direction. That's what I'll say. Like, if you feel lost and you feel like you don't know what you're doing with your life and you feel like you should just quit and go home because what you're doing sucks and you don't know what's happening with it and you're not even feeling motivated anymore and you hate everyone on the internet, just wait a second. Just wait and just let it play out. Maybe you aren't on the internet because you're not crazy like me, but if you just wait and let it play out, it will play out. And it's just like, man, your birthday is April 10th? Trendlin, my college roommate, who I met on my very first day of college back in 1999, because I'm 29 obviously, but maybe not. And my roommate that I met on my very first day of college, her birthday is also April 10th, and I keep in touch with her to this day. She is also an Aries, because Aries are the best. Aries are the best. Yours is April 11th. Mine is April 12th. Which I think is a Saturday this year. I'm pretty sure it's a Saturday. Is my birthday the day before Easter this year? My birthday has actually been on Easter before. Yeah, April 12th is it's my birthday's on Passover. Oh, great. My birthday has religious significance this year. No, my birthday's not on Easter this year. It's the week after Easter. It's the week before Easter. All right, well, happy birthday to all of us. Happy birthday to all of us. You know what? Listen, I would rather attract Aries than what I've been attracting lately, which is fucking Pisces. Now, no offense to any Pisces in the chat, but can I complain for a second? Most of my life, okay, and if you're into astrology, I think you kind of understand this, and I swear we'll get into our show in a second. I need to talk, okay? It's my show. I'll do what I want. Most of my life, or at least when I've been keeping track of this stuff, I've attracted Sagittarius disproportionately, and I've attracted Virgos disproportionately. Now, and big time with Virgos. Like, I've had a lot of Virgos around me. I've dated a lot of Virgo men. My husband is a Virgo. Almost I cannot tell, like, I get along very well with Virgos. I think because Virgos are much calmer, and so Virgos are a good kind of balance to my kind of insanity. And so I love my Virgos. And for years and years and years, I was disproportionately surrounded by Sagittarius and Virgo. And then something happened in the last couple years where all of a sudden Pisces started taking over my life. And all these people with Pisces in their chart started showing up. And again, I don't mean any offense to any Pisces that might be listening. I'm sure you're not like the Pisces that I'm about to describe, but Pisces drives me fucking insane. Insane. And it's like, you know, they say in astrology, the sign after a sign is a rebuttal to the previous sign. So in astrology, Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. And then you have Aries as the first sign of the zodiac. So Aries is a rebuttal to Pisces. And I don't know why I have been served up so many Pisces in my life recently, because this is you know what God is telling me? God is telling me that I need to become patient and I need to become more understanding, because Pisces are so like indecisive and annoying because they're the fishes and they just swim around in the water and they're like, oh, I could go over here. I could go over here. They never make a fucking decision. They just like flit around, and then you have to go, hey, Pisces, do you want to come over here? And they're like, and they don't fucking listen. And then they get in their feelings, because if there is an emo sign of the zodiac, it is the Pisces. And they get in their feelings, and they have all sorts of feelings about their feelings, but they never fucking talk about their feelings because they suppress that shit. And then it explodes at some point because you can't suppress that shit forever, but they just flit around, never making a decision. I am going insane because I'm currently surrounded by Pisces, and I don't like it. I don't like it at all. It is trying my last nerve. I have at least 4 people around me right now that are like Pisces, or they're either Pisces suns, or actually most of them are Pisces moons, because I know all their charts. And I'm like, Pisces moon are almost worse, because like your moon is what you show on your exterior. And it's like, that's how I feel about that. See, Danny, you understand. Danny, I'm not ignoring you. I know I need to respond to the DM you sent me last week, okay? I'm not ignoring you. Maybe I'm sometimes a little Pisces in my response to DMs, okay? I can be annoying as well. All right, guys, let's get into our show now that I've complained about something that doesn't matter on the internet. Now, is Mizakan here? I hope Mizakan's here. Yes, he is. Yep. We have 2 things that we need to thank Mizakan profusely for. One of those things is I have for a long time wanted to highlight more of Mizakan's work on my Substack. Because if you go to my main Substack, that is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com, you will notice I posted I'm starting a new series on the Substack, and it's called Reading the Revolution. And this is going to be part of the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club. So if you go into the book club link on the Substack, you will see this there. It's not a podcast. It's just a text post. And I'm calling this Reading the Revolution. Because Mizakan on Twitter for a long time has been doing us all a great service. Because what he does is he goes and he reads all of the woke books for us. And he keeps these extensive highlights where you can see, he posts them on his Twitter. So you can see here, you can see this is on his Twitter, and everyone should follow him. And I'm going to put his link in the chat, and everyone make sure you're following him because he's doing a great job. And he does these extensive analysis of all these books. And if you go through his Twitter, it's now, he tweets other stuff too, but like a lot of it is related to this, and it's so good. The analysis is so good, and it's so helpful. Every time we're talking about different topics, he's already read a book on it, and he's already got it highlighted, and he can give us the cliff notes, and it's so incredibly helpful. And he posts this stuff literally all the time. So you can see he's always got something on his Twitter with the books, to the point where I can't even keep up with how much content he posts about the books. But I have decided that I want to start taking this and bringing it into the Substack, and I'm giving him full credit, of course, and if he doesn't want me to do this, I won't do it. But I feel like I already mentioned this once, and he was fine with it. So, I mean, I'm giving him full credit because we should always give people credit for their work. He's doing a lot of work for us, and we need to respect that. And I'm basically taking what he's putting on Twitter, and I'm writing up a quick little synopsis of it so that we can start to have all this information in kind of one place, and we can start to like categorize it, because you guys can't see this on the Substack yet, but there are categories in there that you don't know about because I haven't publicized them yet because I'm still building them out. And so we're going to build a whole archive of this stuff just based off of Mizakan's work, and because it's just so good. Okay, we have to do it. And if he doesn't want me to use his stuff, I won't use it. Obviously, this is his content. He is allowing me to do this. But I think it's a really good idea, and I think it'll be nice to have that out to more people. And obviously, we want to elevate what he's doing, because what he's doing is not easy. It's actually really difficult, and it's really time-consuming. And I, of all people, know that, and I know many of you know that too. So we want to be respectful of it and appreciative of it. And so I've decided to start putting it on the Substack. He produces it for this project, and now we're going to take better advantage of it than we were before. Okay. And I've done this with some other stuff too. Like Reagan once produced a really great series of clips, a great thread on Twitter talking about how queer evolved out of punk or something related to that. I did a whole thing on that on the Substack too, and I want people to know, if you're producing content like this, that it has to rise to a certain level. I'm not saying I'm going to do this for everyone, but Reagan's content rises to that level, Mizakan's content rises to that level. I will absolutely put it out on the Substack, and we will find a way to utilize it and get it in front of more people so that we can start teaching more people about this ideology. I think that'd be really great. So that's number one thing we need to be grateful to Mizakan for, and you can find it now on the Substack. This is about a book called Care, the Highest Stage of Capitalism. Care is the highest stage of capitalism? You don't say. I thought imperialism was the highest form of capitalism, but now apparently it's care. Makes sense if you understand what social reproduction theory is, though. But that's not the only thing we have to thank Mizakan for. We can also thank him for the presentation we're going to watch today, because he started watching this on his own because he is very industrious. And apparently it was so good that he decided to DM it to me and say, Carlin, we actually need to watch this. And I was like, okay. So we are watching this presentation today. This is from one of our favorite Marxist YouTube channels. It is called Firestorm Books. They are a radical revolutionary socialist bookstore. I believe they're in North Carolina. So they are a very far left bookstore. They host events all the time. They host trainings all the time. Oh, you know of the doctor. Oh, good. Oh, good. So we're going to be watching this presentation. It is called How Do I Sexy? Sex blogger Mex, M-X, not Mr., not Miss, Mex, that's non-binary, Nilin Lore, who recently authored How Do I Sexy, is joined by author Kitty Stryker. Together they discuss Nilim's new book about finding your sexual self in a landscape rife with misogynistic, transphobic, and homophobic ideals and expectations, and this took place just last month at Firestorm Books. So we're going to be watching that today, guys. And before we jump into it, just a couple quick orders of business. Number one, if you appreciate the work I do, make sure you head over to the Substack. That is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. Sign up for a membership, $8 a month, $80 a year. I am 100% funded by you guys. I cannot spend the time doing this without your help, without your support. I really do appreciate it. I'm trying to provide you with the very best analysis of the far left on the internet so that everyone knows what to expect from the left. We know where things are going to go. We know how they're going to be organizing. We know what tactics they're going to be executing. We understand their language better than anyone else. The way I can do that is when you guys support it, and we're going to be expanding quite a bit this year, and we're going to be trying to reach more people, and that is going to be what the theme of our year is going to be. Okay, so I need all the help I can get. Head over to the Substack, sign up as a supporter. You get access to my supporter Zoom calls. You get access to my supporter Discord. You get access to a variety of perks as my thank you for supporting the work, and I really appreciate it. You can also head over to the Red Menace Collective. This is a Substack that is separate from my main one, where I'm publishing my books before they actually become books. If you want to head over there, you can currently read the next book of mine that's going to be coming out. It is called The Communist Manifesto, a revolutionary fairy tale, and it is a dystopian fiction based on the Communist Manifesto, and I'm really proud of it. And it's going through an editing process right now because Jennifer made me let her edit it, and I said, fine, okay. She'll tell me, I'm not editing, Carlin, I'm just providing feedback. And I'm like, okay, fair enough, fine. But if you want to read the draft chapters of the book, you can currently read them on the Substack. I'm really proud of it. This is redmenacecollective.substack.com, and that is another place that you can sign up to support the work I'm doing. All right, let's jump right into our presentation, shall we? Let us jump right into it. Guys, please make sure you mount the like button for me. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not yet subscribed to the channel. And thank you guys for joining me here today. We do this that's not the right one. How about that one? We do this every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And let's get this party started.
Warmed up here. For everybody who is in the room, welcome. Really excited that you're here with us tonight. My name's Liberty, and I'm a member of the Firestorm Collective. And tonight we're going to be joined, we are already joined by two authors, Nilin Lore and Kitty Stryker. Nilin and Kitty, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having us.
I look too
We're
much
going
like
to
the
be
woman.
discussing
I don't like
sexuality as trans
I don't
or
like that I look
non-binary
like the
queers in a
woman.
landscape
Here, I'm gonna
rife
take my
with
glasses
misogynistic, homophobic, and transphobic ideals and expectations. And it does just feel like this is a more relevant conversation every day that passes somehow. So good to be having it. Just a little backstory in case you haven't joined for any of our other virtual events. Firestorm, the bookstore that I'm part of, is a 16-year-old radical bookstore owned and operated by a queer feminist collective in Asheville, North Carolina, which is southern Appalachia on the land of the Cherokee people.
Collective.
So Firestorm strives to feature books and events that reflect art interests and the needs of marginalized communities, particularly in the South of the United States, although always excited to have people join from anywhere. And we're continuing to do a fair number of events virtually, like this one, both because it's nice to reach authors and audiences at a distance, and also because we know that there's a variety of barriers to joining IRL events for many in our community, including the ongoing COVID pandemic. So this event is actually the last thing I'm going to do before I leave for Firestorm's winter break. It's a great send-off. But when we get back from break, we've got some great virtual events planned that I would just want to go ahead and invite you to sign up for if you're interested, including one on horror, one on the West Virginia mine wars, and a couple more abolitionist events in the Rattling the Cages series. So we got a good spread for you, and I'll drop a link to our calendar in case you want more information on all that. So for tonight, we are using Zoom on the webinar platform. There's an open chat. If you haven't found it yet, definitely feel free to use that. As we go, if you have questions for Kitty or Nilin, then please put those in the Q&A, which is like a separate little tool in there somewhere. I think what does the icon look like? The icon is a question mark. If you put it there, it won't get lost in the chat. So we'd love to have your questions. We're going to make sure there's a little bit of space towards the end of the event. And it's nice to have a few queued up. Great. So tonight, I haven't even said the title of the book. We're here to celebrate the publication of Nilin's new book, How Do I Sexy? A Guide for Trans and Non-Binary Queers. Perfect. Thank you. Right on cue. And so we'll kind of be having a conversation picking up from there, but I'm sure we'll go in interesting directions. Just to kind of introduce our guests here, we do have Nilin Lore, the author, who's an ADHD, queer, gender flux, polyamorous, and disabled author, content creator, and furry out of Saskatchewan. There are multiple award-winning
What? Wait, what? What? Say again. What?
Just to kind of introduce our guests here, we do have Nilin Lore, the author, who's an ADHD, queer, gender flux, polyamorous, and disabled author, content creator, and furry out of Saskatchewan. They're a multiple award-winning sex blogger who earned first place in the top 100 sex blogs of 2021. Nilin contributed to the Big Book of Orgasms, Volume 2, as well as Best Lesbian Erotica of the Year, Volumes 4, 5, and 6. They were also a chapter co-author in the second edition of Trans Bodies, Trans Selves from Oxford University Press, and the editor of Heckin' Lewd, Trans and Non-Binary Erotica. These are pretty much all things you can find from Firestorm if you're looking for copies. Yeah. Thanks so much for joining us and for making this happen, Nilin.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I was really excited about this event, so yeah.
Yay. And next up, we got Kitty Stryker, who we've had the pleasure of hosting for events in the past, but it's exciting to reconnect here tonight. Kitty is one of the people who coined the term consent culture, as well as being an anarchist, activist, queer femme, and leftist doomsday prepper located in San Francisco, or the Bay Area, perhaps more broadly. Kitty is a freelance writer with bylines at Teen Vogue, Vice, Rolling Stone, and more, and enjoys playing TTRPGs in her free time. Kitty's books include Ask, Building Consent Culture, Ask Yourself, the Consent Culture Workbook, and most recently, Say More, Consent Conversations.
Should I try to write an article for Teen Vogue? Should I pretend to be a leftist and write an article for Teen Vogue? I might do that, actually.
For teens. Kitty, thanks for being here and for writing all these great books.
Thanks for having me.
And I understand that there's a bit of a blizzard happening where you're at, Nilin. So really appreciate the extra effort in being here despite the bad weather.
I'd never miss it. Blizzard or no. I'm in Saskatoon, so we get a blizzard every other week. It's good.
All right. Well, your electric grid is probably a little better than ours here in Southern Appalachia, where it goes down just constantly for no reason.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no. Ours is pretty sturdy.
Great. Well, I'm going to pass off to you. Thanks, and take it away.
Yeah. I'm really excited to be talking about this. With my release of How Do I Sexy. It's my first major solo book release. And it's essentially more or less part memoir and mostly self-help is how I've been kind of describing it. And so what that basically means is I'm going to be sharing, very intimate aspects of my own kind of journey through gender identity and growth and transition, as well as, the ups and downs of interacting with family, society, and trying to find how to feel affirmed and good in my body when I'm getting all this information around me, when we're getting all this information around us from, culture, news media, social media, friends, community, so on and so forth, telling us how we should be looking, how we should be feeling, what is sexy, and not really leaving much room to define it for ourselves. So How Do I Sexy is my effort to show you how I define my own sexy and hopefully give you some guidance in how to do so for yourself as well. Yeah, that's about it in summation.
Well, that leads really nicely into my first question, which is, yeah, that sounds good. How?
Yeah.
The world makes us feel ashamed of our desires and our bodies. I do want to acknowledge I am a cis queer femme who is also asexual. So there are definitely aspects of this book that speak to me, even though it's not for me, which I thought was really...
Why are they having an asexual talk about the sex book? It's very queer.
Really great. And I guess I'm just curious to hear you talk a little bit about how do you figure out what you find sexy in others and in yourself? And then how do you figure out what is genuinely your sexy versus a projected ideal pushed on you?
Clumsily. It would be the best summation of that. The information that we're getting is so overwhelming in general. It's even for myself that on the day that I feel most affirmed, the most hot, the most sexy, I still wonder, is this me, or is this how I think it should be me, right? I know that when I first came out as trans, and it was great to have a lot of community around me. I had between a mix of allies as well as other trans women. But one of the things I kind of noticed right away was this insistence on people giving it unsolicited advice, right? It's like, oh, you're trans, so this means that oh, you want to be femme. And so all of these, especially unfortunately cisgender women, seem to think that the best thing that they could do for me is tell me how to be a woman. And on one hand, it's a nice little effort sort of thing. I appreciate, the sentiment. But what that ended up actually doing was just giving me a ton of information on things that I didn't even think were accessible to me at the time. As if you want to be a woman, you have to have long hair. Oh, have you tried, using all this makeup that I had no idea how to use myself? Oh, you shouldn't wear this color. Oh, maybe put on that dress or this skirt. And these are all things like I had never experienced before because I was AMAB, right? Like I came into this as being raised.
Hang on. I have this up a little. I have playback speed, and I just feel like we need to have this at normal playback speed. Okay, go.
To not really care about any of that stuff for the most part. But what that ended up doing was really jumbling a message for me that the only way to transition was from one extreme to the other. And to be doing so in a body that, like, if I'm being completely honest with you, like I'm a chubbier individual and I've always been kind of larger. And, chubby bodies, even regardless of your gender, on either side of that spectrum, when you're looking at it in a binary lens, it's really hard to feel sexy in those conditions when you're being told that, like, this is sexy on a slim person, right? And on a white person.
Yeah.
I remember some of the very first people I met were a bunch of femboys. Awesome, awesome people. Really, really cool, really like in your face about it. All 20 something, all extremely thin, all wearing clothes that it's never gonna fit on me, right? So, in the early parts, I really genuinely think that the best we can really do is to take all that and just keep trying. The biggest thing that I wish I had given myself the permission to do at the time, which I didn't, was to make mistakes and to change my mind. But it felt really scary to do so because I felt like, if I did change my mind, then all of a sudden it's, oh, are you really trans? Right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, right. So like, if you don't want to do this, then are you like, what do you mean you don't want to have bottom surgery? Like, what do you mean you don't feel comfortable super femme? Like, don't you want to be a woman? And of course, that coming from a place of like, I hadn't even heard of non-binary people at this point in time, or genderqueer people, or gender flux, or
It was a
agender,
simpler
or
time.
anything in between. So, trying to look at all of that stimulus and then trying to even look online, my favorite shows, my favorite movies, you're looking for little examples and you're trying to pull from it, but it's all in a binary lens. There was so little that was coming in a binary lens. Nowadays, I have to admit, like, so when I first came out at 26, I'm now 38. So when I first came out and started transitioning, at the time there was almost nothing. But like nowadays, like I'm watching like Heartstopper and Heartbreak High and Sex Education, and there's all these like in your face gender queers. And I'm like, oh my God, where were you? That would have made such a
Yeah.
big difference for me at the time. And it just goes to show you that in 10 years, the difference that kind of made, right? So I think that there's really no shame in um, following a path and maybe even going along with like certain things that like are more mainstream or don't feel quite right, but giving you the permission to stop any of it that you don't like. Because there's this huge narrative, even just in terms of your transition, but also in terms of like, how to feel affirmed and sexy, of like, we all have to do this one path, right? It's just like, oh, you come out of trans, so that must mean you're trans femme, which means you have to immediately get onto Spiro and like, and estrogen, and you have to start dressing like feminine, and you have to want either bottom surgery or top surgery, because if you don't, then are you really even trans? And you, so on and so forth. There's all these rules to go. No, 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 no. Forget all of those. Do only what you're comfortable with doing. And the same with the sexy thing. If you feel sexiest in a tank top and like, underwear and that's what you want to wear, awesome. If you want to wear a skirt with a dress jacket, cool. Like whatever combinations you want to do, whether it's more gendered one way, more gendered the other way, throw in kink kind of gear is a huge thing people don't really realize is really accessible to them. As a furry, I'm a big fan of like animal ears, tails, collars, all that sort of stuff. All of which is to basically say that rather than worry about, doing it right, just like do what's right for you.
Hey, bot. Welcome. Our presenter today is a furry. Just bringing you up to speed.
So pick and choose. And you can try a whole bunch of stuff and be like, oh, this is okay, but it doesn't feel good, and then stop doing it. That's okay. And I honestly genuinely think that's the best you can do. Yeah.
I think that you touch on something that I think is actually super present in culture generally, as we're not immediately getting.
He's a furry and a Canadian. Oh, true. Musican called out. True.
Feel like all of the politics happening
do
around the
it.
world. But like, I think fascism really requires a nailed down understanding of experience. Like it has to, like everyone has to conform in very specific ways. And if you don't, then you're deviant.
Yeah.
And I feel like hearing you talk about your experience and like, you know, being okay with nuance and not fully understanding, it reminds me a lot of my experience being a sex worker who then realized I was asexual and that's why I liked sex work. And
Awesome.
that wasn't the timeline or like the trajectory that
I was a sex worker who realized I wasn't asexual, and that's why I like sex work. Possibly because sex work is depersonalizing sexuality. So they can still be an asexual. Yes, yeah, she did say that. Yeah, she said she likes sex work because she's an asexual. Yeah, she did. Yeah. Yeah, that was when you DM'd me. Again.
understanding. It reminds me a lot of my experience being a sex worker who then realized I was asexual and that's why I liked sex work. And
Awesome.
that wasn't the timeline or like the trajectory that I was expected to feel. Like the fact that I had been a sex worker and then identified as asexual was often taken by others as proof that sex work had traumatized me. But actually, it felt like, no, like the sex work was great because it was performance based. It was very concrete. The rules were clear. I felt very in charge. I mean, I was, even as a survival sex worker, I am a larger, very assorted girl. So like, I felt very confident bossing clients around. And like,
yeah.
I didn't, possibly to my own recklessness, I didn't feel that concerned for my life. But like that, it was always flummoxing for me that I couldn't change my mind. I mean, like, I don't know that I'm going to be asexual tomorrow. I might be, I might not be. I don't know. Like, I'm just kind of coasting and seeing what works today and what feels right today. And that also speaks a lot to like the writing I do about consent, where again, I think people want it to be like super clear and static.
Yeah.
And these things often aren't. Like, you know, like I think we agree as people that consent is important.
Yes.
Like everyone said, yep, yeah. But even what consent means.
Well, this is a good question, Pamela. This is a good question indeed. So let me back up. Ask, what does Mizakan, is there some sort of woke definition of asexual that I don't know about? Because my definition of asexual is that it's a person that like doesn't have sexual desire. Like they just don't care about engaging in sex. It doesn't, I don't know if it means like they're not attracted necessarily, but like they're just like, there's like something in their brain where they're like, I just don't really want that. So this is kind of what I thought. So there's like the proper definition of okay, so when we're dealing with the queer Marxists, right, you've always got to remember there is the proper definition of something, and then there is the queer definition of something. So this is kind of what I was suspecting. So Mizakan is telling us in queer definition, being asexual is more like a spectrum. Which makes sense because they also think gender is a spectrum. So sometimes Kitty might be more asexual than others, is what we're saying. It's kind of like when a woman has a headache, except they've pathologized it and made it into a identity.
Varies so much from person to person. Like, when I was working on my book, I was thinking a lot about the definition of a fish and how we all kind of think we know what a fish is, but the more you try to narrow it down, the more you begin to realize that there are exceptions. And I feel like consent is often the same, where you're like, oh, yes means yes, no means no, except for things like workplace consent, you know,
Yep.
except for medical consent or consent in regards to parents and children. Like that is a good ideal and that is a good thing to strive towards. But I mean, the reality is much more complicated than that.
Yeah.
Which leads to another question that I had is like, so, you know, since sex education is harder, increasingly harder to come by, and is often being stifled by forces that want everything to be heterosexist and cisgender and white and for procreation.
Yep.
Social reproduction.
It's, you know, we're kind of getting some mixed messaging, not only from the mainstream, but also, I mean, even within our own communities
Yeah,
about
for sure.
Thanks, Barbie.
consent being enthusiastic and informed. Like, great when it can be, but I mean, like, how do you inform exactly? Like, what if I don't know myself well enough to inform you?
Yeah.
Does that mean I just shouldn't do anything until that point? So I guess I'm curious, like, the advice is often like, oh, well, how can you do anything? Like, you should know everything about yourself. You should know where you stand before you try hormones or before you have sex in a certain way or ask for people to call you by a certain pronoun. But like that seems impossible. Like we don't live in a world where that makes sense. So like how, I guess I'm curious for you to speak to that tension of like, we are expected to know ourselves so thoroughly, but we're also not given the tools to know ourselves at all.
Yeah. Well, I think you really nailed it just by using the word expected, right? Like there's all these expectations
Yeah.
that we have put on us and projected on us from all sorts of different angles and backstories, and experiences, right? And so one of the things that I've come to learn at this point in time is that no matter what I do, whether, you know, if I'm, you know, transitioning in a way that somebody doesn't think is right, if I'm having sex in a way that somebody thinks is, oh, that seems off or whatever it is, the reality is that, like, you know, almost all of the like acceptance that I've experienced outside of, you know, my close partnerships and friendships has been conditional, right? It's like I get the support so long as I do blank, 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 and blank. And if you deviate from that in any way, then you're kind of hooped. So you're right. How do you possibly, you know who you are and what you like if you're being told that you can't even like do that until you
can't
know?
try anything.
That's ridiculous, right? So I think there's ways to like maybe dip your toes a little bit if you're feeling a little bit apprehensive about it. And you got to be careful with it as well. But like there's a lot online nowadays. You know, whether you find yourself like a Discord group or a Telegram chat or something, if you want to dabble a little bit in discussing things with other Kinksters or BDSM folks, if you want to try sexting, you know, like that's something that you can try to play around with a little bit, or if you even just want to research these things online and watch a couple of videos or that sort of thing. One of the places that I always send people to is Crash Pad Series, because Crash Pad Series, it is a monthly subscription, but like the affirming and like just incredibly diverse like representation of not only like bodies and identities, but also like the types of sex people are having on that channel is wild. Like you will see every conceivable sex act
Absolutely everything
on Crash Pad Series, right? And if you're watching it and you're like, "Ooh, that's not for me," there you go. Now you at least have a little bit of a no in terms of like your.
Does anyone know what he's talking about? Every conceivable sex act? What? I'm slightly terrified to learn more.
Watching an intense scene going like, "Oh, that seems scary." So you're already starting to think about you know, intensity and boundaries just by watching something yourself, right? But it's hard because there is a degree of taking a chance for sure. And I think that again, the best thing that you can really do is to just go into it as prepared as possible in terms of maybe you're not quite sure you know what you like, but maybe you do know that if you don't like it, this is what you're going to do, right? Or, you know, maybe you have, maybe I know that when I was first kind of really getting out there and doing hookups and stuff like that, when I was younger, I was kind of a fool and I did some really not great things. But when I was older, I would give my number to somebody and let them know where I was going so that they knew that like I'm going to go on this hookup, I'm going to go on this date or whatever. I'm going to try some things and see how it feels.
Oh
There's also lots
no.
of like, different sort of sex parties and
Oh
munches. You can
no. Hang on. Hang on. Mizakan, I'm gonna look at this myself first. Because I feel like you're trying to trick me into showing porn on the internet. Mizakan just sent me a link. Yeah, okay, I'm over 18. Crashpad is a Bay Area hotbed of queer. Oh no. Oh no. No. I don't. I don't know if I want to look at this. Okay. It's safe for work, I think. Hang on. The crash pad. Hang on, I need to put on my glasses. Where are my glasses? No, really, where are my glasses? Oh, they're on my computer. Okay. I found them. Crisis averted. I knew they couldn't have gone far. I was wearing them like 5 minutes ago. Okay. The origin story. The Crash Pad is a secret apartment in California dedicated to hot queer sex. Thanks to the voyeuristic supervision of the Keymaster, played by creator Shine Louise Houston, the lube never runs out, the sheets are always clean, no matter how much you soak them the night before, and your wildest fantasies come true. Brief history of our queer porn. In 2005, Shine Louise Houston quit her job to start a porn company. Pink and White Productions, alright. And directed her debut film, The Crash Pad, which won the Feminist Porn Awards Hottest Dyke Sex Scene and became an instant cult classic. She soon launched Crash Pad series in response to the film's growing interest in LGBTQ plus audiences hungered for more queer porn episodes reflecting their own experiences and desires. Crash Pad now showcases over 400 episodes. This is terrifying. I've never been. This is terrifying. Look at all the they thems. No, I didn't want to see boob. No nudity. No nudity. No. I find myself at an impasse. We're obviously not going to watch this on the internet. I'm not going to put this on YouTube or Rumble or Twitter or any other place. But I find myself at an impasse because I am terrified of what's on this website, but I'm also intrigued to find out what queer porn is. And if we're being honest about it, I've already permanently scarred myself by accidentally watching fat porn on more than one occasion because I've been like researching fat activists, and I've told people this. If you are researching fat activists, you will inevitably end up on Pornhub because all fat activists are also amateur porn stars. And they all have porn out there. And if you go to their Instagram, you're inevitably going to find some link and it's going to go to Pornhub and then you're going to see things you can't unsee. And I have seen things that I cannot unsee. And so I kind of feel like how much more scarring could it get? And I'm oddly curious about what this actually is. Like, because we know that queer people, like, they're very kinky and they're very creative about things. but I'm also terrified, like legitimately, like I've got like the sinking feeling right now in the pit of my stomach. I'm like, this is one of those things where it's like I have the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other. And the angel's like, Carlin, this is a really good idea. And the devil's like, yeah, Carlin, this is a really good idea. And then I'm like, but why is the devil saying it's a good idea? And then I feel like and then maybe the angel's like, yeah, maybe if the devil's saying it's a good idea, maybe this isn't a good idea at all. And then I find myself conflicted. So we're just going to keep that right there for right now. We're going to go back to our show. And now you all know that there is a queer porn reality series on the internet called Crash Pad, apparently, where we can apparently find every sex act under the sun known to man, which is a slightly terrifying. Yeah, exactly. Like, I wasn't asexual 3 hours ago, but I might be asexual now.
Go to a sex party and not have sex, by the way. That is an interesting thing that a lot of people don't seem to realize, right? And if you're comfortable in that space to kind of watch,
having sex?
Which is also interesting because as somebody who enjoys being in those spaces but doesn't necessarily feel like participating, there are also a lot of those spaces that are like, yeah, voyeurism's cool, except like not at sex parties. Like it's like we don't, which is so weird to me. It is really
weird, yeah.
I mean, I understand like you don't want people gawking unless the people have consented to that. But like I went to a party in London, which was fantastic, where a guy came up and was like, hey, can I watch you and your partner tie each other up and like jerk off over here in the corner? We're like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Like, like that sounds great.
Which is
we don't have to interact with you and we can just exist. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So like, again, I think like it's that fear of nuance.
Yeah.
That is like so present in sexuality and gender, but is also present in like information, like
very, very much
the
so,
way that we talk about the news, like there's this real need for everything to be explicit.
Yeah.
But like just,
well, and I mean,
you have to try things.
You do. And you also have to like, just be kind to yourself, right? And to say like, maybe I go and do something and I don't like it and I don't say anything and I feel bad about it afterwards. You're not at fault for that. You might not have had that practice. Being able to like kind of give yourself that space to be forgiving to yourself, and if you feel comfortable expressing what you need to express to the other person. But like I remember, again, when I was younger and actually even recently having some like non-consensual experiences, where because of trauma, like I shut down. I had Nick Snillen, who look at all the things I write about and like all the work that I do, I couldn't communicate. I couldn't say no. I couldn't say stop. And like that could happen sometimes. So it's really important to also just like come into these things with kindness and compassion for yourself, right? And to say that you're not going to do it perfectly. The other person might not do it perfectly. Thinking about different degrees of the complications of like, how well do you know this person? Like, did you have a conversation beforehand about things? Is it somebody you feel comfortable talking about afterwards? It's a hard space to navigate. And I don't think there's like a gold standard. There's no perfect way to do it, like without kind of jumping in a little bit, right? So, and I know for myself too, there's an extra complicated layer because like I'm plural as well. And so, as a person who's plural, there's like different degrees of myself that maybe conflict with, we want this.
Does anyone know what that means? This is really going to test you guys. Do you know what being plural means? Pop quiz for the chat. Does anyone know what being plural means? Yeah, it means multiple personalities. This guy has multiple personalities. It's fucking dissociative disorder. When they have dissociative disorder and they have multiple people inside of them, they also call it system gender because it's a system of people. Being plural is a system of people. Yeah, it's people with plurality. It's multiple personality disorder. Yeah, that's exactly and precisely what plural means. I'm plural as well. Oh, good. And also what that means is that this person could have multiple beings with multiple gender identities inside of them, where one of their gender identities could be a he him, one of the gender identities could be a they them, one of the gender identities could be a fey fair. And the reason I know this is I went undercover at a conference in which I sat in on a presentation specifically about this topic with someone who had multiple personality disorder, and they explained the whole thing. And then I got possessed by a demon in the presentation, and I had to have an exorcism in downtown Boulder. And that's all true. And I have told the story multiple times on the channel about my my multiple personality disorder exorcism in downtown Boulder, which actually really did happen.
There's an extra complicated layer because like I'm plural as well. And so, as a person with plural, there's like different degrees of myself that maybe conflict with, we want this, but also, we don't want that. And like, so how do I kind of express that in a way that feels good? So, yeah.
That sounds like trying to please activists.
We want this and we want that.
Yeah.
Because
Wow.
there's that image of this idea of like, oh, well, I want to be an ally to the trans community, and
Yep.
this trans person is telling me this, and this trans person is telling me the polar opposite thing.
Mhm.
What do I do? And like, when people ask it, I'm just like, just do something. Do something. And like, be humble about it. Like,
Yep.
you're not going to please everybody. Do your best. Acknowledge that your best is going to be imperfect, and that you can constantly strive to be a little bit better. And yeah, you're probably going to fuck it up sometimes. So that's okay. Yeah. And I mean, also like acknowledging that, I mean, again, like not to say that there aren't abusers out there, not to say that there aren't people who take advantage. There are also a lot of people who like don't know what they don't know. And like,
Exactly.
I think a lot of the experiences that I had that I considered to be more explicitly non-consensual when I was in my more riot girl 20s, now in my 40s, I'm like, well, maybe that could be true.
Yeah.
And the damage is the damage regardless. But also, like, I wasn't able to tell this person that wasn't okay in the moment or even months later.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know that it wasn't okay. It took me a long time to figure it out. So like, if I couldn't figure it out, how could I possibly expect this other person who doesn't live in my head to figure it out?
Yeah.
And like, I think, yeah, that does require a lot of compassion.
It does. And like, and again, it's easier said than done, but like, I try to look at like, so the two non-consensual situations that I can remember, I had one happen just like a few weeks ago, but this was with a friend that I've known for a long time. And then another one happened last summer. So the difference here being that the friend that I've known for a long time, I know for a fact that had I said, hey, wait, please stop, they would have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I didn't. And the harm was done. And, it can be argued that before, basically they had initiated like penetrative sex without really even checking in with me. I had boundaries and agreements with my partners that were kind of being violated in that. I shut down and trauma responded, right? Had I said something, I know for a fact they would have stopped, but I trauma responded and the harm was done regardless. They could have checked in with me before like just starting to have penetrative sex with me. I could have maybe said something. We could have talked a little bit earlier at the beginning, woulda, coulda, shoulda. What happened happened. However, then you got to weigh a little bit about like, okay, so like that felt really bad, but like it definitely wasn't, intended or direct or came at me maliciously.
Yeah.
Versus a past situation where I had a date with somebody, and I kept explicitly saying like, hey, I need this to not be like sexual. I'm just not feeling that right now. And I have boundaries with my partners. And this person just kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and sex and stuff ended up happening. That's very different. That's a case of like, I'm seeing, violation, 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 violation. So yeah.
And a lack of safety, if you say that.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Which,
so
considering the political environment, is increasingly dangerous. I mean, like, who?
You know what really pisses me off about queer activists? These people ruin sex. They ruin it. They embrace sex so completely, and yet at the same time, they get neurotic and like way overthink everything about it. And in the neuroticism and the overthinking of every single aspect of sex, they fucking ruin it. I promise you, these people might technically be having a lot of sex, but their sex lives are horrible. They are horrible. They are completely unfulfilled. If you're going around saying, I just don't feel like penetrative sex right now, and I'm just like, I'm just not I'm sorry, stop being such a fucking pussy. Please. Please. It's like sex is supposed to be a time when you let the F go, not where you overanalyze every single little thing. That ruins it. They're destroying everything about our world. Yeah, they're using sex to deconstruct power relationships. This is actually true. This is not even all the kinky shit they do. It's not even about having sex. It's not about having fun. It's not about having an orgasm. It's not about connecting emotionally with someone else. It's not about doing any of these things. It is all about using sex as a way to deconstruct power dynamics. Lighten up. Not everything has to be so serious.
You can't call the police. I mean, you never really could, right? But
No, that's the thing, right?
recognizing like, oh shit, like if something goes wrong, like what do I do about it other than dwell, go to therapy, maybe like talk to my community,
which I do.
maybe.
So yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like it's hard.
Yeah,
it's really hard.
It really comes down to vulnerability is scary. And there's no perfect way to do it. And there's definitely going to be hurt. There's definitely going to be harm, but there's also going to be like a lot of pleasure and a lot of fun. And it's taking a chance. Yeah. Doing your best.
Yeah. I thinking about that, like I wonder, I don't know. I'm a big fan, and if this is a question that's uncomfortable, you don't have to answer it, of course. But like, I find in my writing, I'm often super upfront about like, hey, here's the times where I fucked up, or like where things were more complicated than I realized, and where I had some hard lessons to learn. And I guess I'm curious about this fear of ambiguity that that's drilled into us. Can you like, has that ever manifested like from like emanating from you? And like, how has that manifested? If so, whether that be like you towards yourself or you towards somebody else?
Yeah, it's the fear of ambiguity is really interesting because that's probably one of the things that I've internalized the most for me too. Like when it comes to queer phobia, that's maybe one of the biggest things that's kind of really like kind of seeped into me, sort of thing. I know that like a lot of the choices that I've even made for myself personally with my transition, I just started on HRT and estrogen actually like within the last like 6 months. And a big part of that was like,
estrogen.
I was non-binary. I wasn't doing those transitions. There was a weird thing in the back of my head that's like, okay, but if you start on HRT now, then you're betraying yourself because you're the non-binary that's not transitioning, right? But like all these different things about ambiguity in terms of like, identity and expression and desires, trying to make a choice and get in the lane. It's really, really hard to sort that out and find the truth in it for yourself, right? Like, how do you even begin to pick that apart? I happen to be the type of person that will sit up until 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, going, why do I feel this way about this thing? And I got a Word document that's like 5 pages long of literally, okay, well, my dad did this to me at this point in time. And okay, I've seen all these shows and that was awful. And like, I can really pick it apart and kind of see exactly where it's coming from. But it's still so hard to let yourself just be and do whatever you want to do. I think the hardest thing too is like, it depends on how long that like getting in a box has been pounded into you. It's like harder. Now that I'm getting close to like, my 40s and stuff like that, it's like I'm still trying to unpack everything that my father taught me, everything that my parents taught me, everything.
Hang on.
Not both my parents. My mom has been lovely.
We got a super chat from Rottweiler. Could there be a component of sexual frustration to their behavior in this context besides seeing everything as a struggle against capitalism? To me, that sounds very unsatisfying too. No fun allowed. I mean, I'm sure they all have massive self-esteem issues. Like, there's just no confidence from these people. And it's not about how they look. Like, confidence is separate from how you look. And I just think that they don't like themselves. And I think that they do all this crazy shit to themselves because they don't like themselves. And it's a way of, like, you know, acting that out physically or whatever. And so, are people who don't like themselves, do they tend to be sexually frustrated? Well, the sexual frustration comes from the fact that they don't want to let go. I mean, that's really where sexual frustration comes from. In order to have an orgasm, you need to be able to let go. The orgasm is called the little death. It's the little death because it's supposed to prepare us for the big death. And you can't, like, it's giving you that momentary thing. It's not even about, like, sexual pleasure. I mean, you're getting sexual pleasure from it, but just from, like, I mean, a spiritual standpoint or whatever, it's like the French call the orgasm the little death because it's a moment where you have to release completely or you're not going to come. And that's supposed to prepare you for releasing completely from life when that eventually happens down the road. So it's like if they're sexually frustrated, it's because they've wound themselves up and gotten all effing neurotic about it, because they can't just relax and let go because they don't like themselves very much and they constantly feel like they have to punish themselves and all that stuff. Yeah, la petite mort. Yes.
Everything that, you know, I learned in school, everything I saw in film and television saying this is how, this is how, this is how, this is how. And now I'm in a whole world that says, well, not necessarily. It's really hard to deprogram that in a way that, like, you know, feels good at all. So trying to work through it for myself is again a big degree of taking chances and treating myself with compassion. The funny thing is, half the things that I talk about in this book, all these beautiful affirmations, grand beautiful advice, I still suck at doing this stuff myself.
That's like me with my consent book, where I'm like,
right.
well, these are all great ideals. And also sometimes I still don't measure up to it.
Yeah, like it's impossible to be a perfect person, and it's impossible to go through the whole thing. The really crappy part being like that voice that's been instilled in us, you know, from generations. And I say generations because
I mean, this is part of why these people are so into kink. Because kink is about, like, if you're submissive, it's about literally letting go. Like, that's part of the point. They're literally, like, we watched that queer rope workshop where, like, they were literally tying each other up and they weren't being sexual when they were doing it. But it's like, if you're being tied up and having all these different rope things done for you and you're being hung in the air and swung back and forth and doing all these things, you have no choice but to let go. And so they're using sex to try to they're really, I mean, they're trying very, very hard to let go, but they're still neurotic about it because they don't, for some reason, it's not computing with them that, you know, you can't try to control everything, you know?
Definitely believe in, like, you know, I mean, generational trauma is a huge thing with Indigenous folks and stuff like that in general, but like trauma is just passed down again and again and again. I happen to know that, like, back in my family history, we've had quite a few closeted they identified as cross-dressers and transsexual and stuff like that, who never got to be themselves, and actually were really queerphobic and transphobic, passing that down to their kids because of that internalization. And so it's really so here you are existing, carrying all of that with you, plus everything that was instilled in you in your youth. And then there's this part of you that's finally starting to say, oh, I don't have to do this. But it's surrounded by, like, a sea of everything saying, yes, you do. That's an uphill battle. But what's the best story is an underdog story. So,
No, that resonates a lot because, like,
yeah.
I came to the conclusion, like, you know, I'm also plus size, and as a fat person, I really struggled with, like, well, I feel okay with my body, but then sometimes I don't, and I'm not sure where that's coming from. And then at some point I realized, like, oh, it's not me. It's literally everyone else. Like, it's not my problem with my body. It's everyone else's problem with my body that that sort of, like, I don't know, like, bangs into my shell over and over again until eventually I'm like, oh, some of it's seeped in. But like left to my own devices, I'm very happy with my body. And I don't know, it's for me at least. And again, like I'm cis, so this is more in relation to uh body dysmorphia of a different kind. But like there was a point where I was like, actually, I don't feel this way. And I wasn't raised to feel this way.
Yeah.
This is something that is a you problem, rest of the world. And I refuse to take it on.
Well, it's interesting too, because
fuck
like
off.
sometimes like that voice, like, cause like, you know, as a fat person myself too, it's like sometimes that voice inside that says like, oh, like you're not attractive. I do hear it come from me. And I'm going like, why am I thinking about this by myself? And then almost always I look at my social media and I go, oops, I've accidentally followed like 6,000 very, very thin young people.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got to be careful about
Accidentally.
it, right? Before you realize that all
Accidentally.
of a sudden
Yeah.
you don't really think about it, but you like I remember I was on Tumblr having a great time, but then I just started to feel awful and awful and awful about myself. And I was saying these really terrible things about myself, and my partner or friend was like, what's going on? And then they looked over my shoulder one day while I was on Tumblr and they're like, Nilan, like we're all the fat people. It's like
Yeah.
you know, you sometimes accidentally like isolate yourself from affirming resources. So I always say that, like, you know, if you're having that bad internalization in those negative self-talk, definitely it's other people's problems. But if it's still there, take a look at just what you're surrounding yourself with for a minute. Just like go, okay, hang on a second. What are the messages that intentionally or not, like I'm taking in,
Right.
right?
Because it could be a bunch of thin people who are very body positive in a lot
Yeah.
of ways, but like just the imagery is enough.
It is sometimes. It really
Absolutely.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've been thinking about that a lot as it relates to Christianity and evangelicalism, and how, as living in the United States, like like especially I was raised pagan. I wouldn't have thought, oh, Christian beliefs have like seeped into my system. But
Yeah.
of course they have, because they're fucking everywhere. And like they're not even seen as Christian beliefs anymore. They're
Yeah.
just seen as beliefs. And at some point, like it is really hard, you know, fish don't know what water is, right? Like, because they
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
swim in it. And it very much feels that way of having to like pull myself out and be like, hang on, I don't think shame is something I was raised with. I think that's something that's coming from everywhere else that isn't actually a natural part of my existence.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
I was experiencing that when it came to sobriety.
where I will agree with them is that I think that if you feel bad about yourself, take a look at what you're following on social media, because social media is an algorithm. If you are following certain things, if you're liking certain things, if you're engaging with certain things, if you're spending a certain amount of watch hours on certain things, then the algorithm is going to give you more of those things. If you are interacting with content that makes you feel bad, if you're watching things that make you feel bad, if you are like, you know, like engaging with this stuff, even if it's like, you know, from a hate, this is why hate watching is like a horrible idea. Don't ever hate watch. Because when you hate watch, you're going to get more stuff that you hate, and that's going to make you angry, and that's going to make you feel bad, and then you're going to be in a constant self-perpetuating cycle. No one controls the algorithm that you have on social media except for you. And the algorithm doesn't know the difference between the content that you're selecting because you like it and it makes you feel good, and the content that you're selecting because you're hate watching it and it makes you feel bad. You have to be in charge of that, okay? And so if you're feeling bad, just look at other content, engage with other things, make a proactive effort to get more positive content in your feed. Like, social media is a cesspool, guys. There's so many people right now on Twitter that are just, they've lost their fucking minds from Twitter. Twitter drives people insane. You will never convince me otherwise. I've said this a million times. I have seen previously normal people that were normal, that were good people in real life, that spent too much time on Twitter, were not mindful of how they were engaging with it, and they got sucked into an outrage junkie cesspool that literally made them insane. James Lindsay is a really good example of that. There was a time when James Lindsay was normal, and then he spent too much time on Twitter, and then he went insane. And there are so many cases that are just like that. Pretty much everyone with derangement syndrome has been driven deranged by the social media they're on and the news media that they're consuming. So just stop consuming it. Seriously, just stop consuming it. You can watch cat videos. I watch videos about purses. I watch videos about cooking. I watch videos occasionally about knitting, though not so much anymore. I kind of got traumatized by the knitting stuff. I watch videos about royalty. I watch videos about jewelry. I watch videos about cruising. I watch videos about things that make me happy. And if I have something that comes into my feed that I don't want to see, I do not engage with it. I say, I am not interested in this. Don't show me more content like this. No, 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 no. I've even taken to watching claw machine videos recently. Does anyone watch those? The claw machine videos where the people go and they find the claw machines in the abandoned mall and then they use the claw machine, because it's like, I used to want to do, I never was very good at the claw machine, so it's nice to see other people winning from a claw machine and everyone's happy. Everyone gets a prize. They have to spend all their dollars in the claw machine. I can take part in their joy from their win from the claw machine and not have to spend a lot of money on the claw machine and not get a stupid stuffed animal that isn't even a good quality stuffed animal. But like, you feel good when you win it, and then you're like, I've got this dumb stuffed animal. What do I even do with this? So I don't have any of the hassle, and I have all of the victory just by watching claw machine videos, and it's great.
Variety. And like so many sober groups were very focused on like how not Christian they were. And yet shame was such a huge part of how they influenced you to stay sober. And I was like, that I don't get it. Like,
Yeah,
that's not
exactly.
my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can feel kind of crazy, honestly, because like it's treated by so many people around you as if this is just an innate way that the world is. And you're like, is it though? Wait, really? Yeah, I mean, honestly, I do a lot of spreadsheets. That's how I figure this stuff out for myself.
Spreadsheets.
I couldn't understand why I was having such a hard time in relationships until I went back through my live journal, and I'm gonna really date myself here, my dead journal.
Yo!
Oh my God.
I know, right?
I totally had a dead journal. I 100% had a dead journal. Did anyone else have a dead journal? I absolutely had a dead journal. Dead Journal was a website that was not LiveJournal. LiveJournal was like a journal, was like a website where you journaled, and Dead Journal was also a website where you journaled, but it was different than LiveJournal. And I don't remember what the difference was. I think one was white and one was black. Like, this was the 90s, guys. This was the 90s. I had a Dead Journal in the fucking 90s. This was like before Tumblr. LiveJournal and Dead Journal were the predecessor to Tumblr, okay? Is my recollection. I don't know, maybe I'm forgetting. Wow, I am old.
To see like what I had said about relationships I was excited about and relationships that I was devastated by, and by like formatting all of that into a spreadsheet, I was able to say, okay, these are themes. Like, these are clearly things that I value in a relationship, and these are things that I don't like in relationships. Next time I get into a relationship, I'm going to start looking at these things, and like, they don't have to be every one of my ideals, and they don't have to display all of my deal breakers, but like recognizing that balance helped me have healthier relationships. I don't know, it's weird. It feels like gamifying these things, but because hey, data is super useful sometimes.
It genuinely is. I mean, like, very similarly, you know, I was having a really rough year with one of my partners last year. We were really, really like at odds, having massive communication issues, lots of kind of like ups and downs, to the point where I was like, what is going on? And so similarly, I kind of had to look back at a broader range, and it became quite clear that we were doing the avoidant and anxious attachment dance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, hang on. Shit. And then also looking at the fascination of like, okay, so like I'm in a secure partnership with one of my partners, I'm anxiously attached with this one, but when we started dating, I was the avoidant attached one, and they were the anxious attached one, and I was avoidant in past relationships. So, what are the things that I'm doing, and or ignoring, uh, that like need some adjustment, right? So
Hmm.
again, you put your stat sheet there, and you're looking at like, what are my triggers? What are my contributions? How am I triggering them to be avoidant? Whatever, um, and just adjusting. I love the idea of when you're as soon as you said, look,
Barbie, why would you ask me such an evil, 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 evil question? I am obviously perpetually 29. I am not one day older than 29. I will be turning 29 for the 15th time in a couple weeks, something like that. I don't know, someone else can do math, but I'm 29.
look at your stats. I'm like, yeah, seriously, look at your stats. That's such a great
Your
idea.
character sheet.
And like, it has nothing to
Look
do
at
with
your skill set.
yeah, it has nothing to do with like looking and comparing it with other people, but literally just looking at your trends and seeing the bad trends in terms of what made you feel not good, and the good trends, what made you feel good. How can you bring that into balance? And you can do that towards your relationships, you can do that towards your self-expression, you can do that towards your sex life, whatever. That's amazing. That's a great
Yeah,
idea. Yeah.
that it's funny. My nerd brain.
I don't even know what VTubing is. Isn't it just where they have like an anime thing and they talk through an anime? I don't even know what it is.
When like, yeah, if you think you should be a sorcerer and just
Yeah.
have innate magical talent, but actually you're a wizard and you need to like read a lot of books and that's what fulfills you,
Yeah.
you're going to go through life feeling incredibly frustrated.
Exactly.
But if you accept like, hey, I'm better at being a wizard, like that's where my stat blocks are, that's where I thrive.
Yeah.
Then like you can go so much further than if you were trying to like force yourself into this role that maybe doesn't suit you and doesn't serve you.
So you hear
And
that,
that
all you
role might
wizards?
change.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
like
thing,
I
right?
mean, you could multi-class. Hey, like I mean, D&D doesn't really like it, but you can do it anyway.
Exactly. D&D doesn't happen without the player, so multi-class.
Yeah. Yeah, Wizards of the Coast.
That's right, wizards, read your books, multi-class.
Wow.
But like I think again, and that speaks again to this like need for nuance and this need for ambiguity. I think that
Oh God, I hate my voice. You think I have that's a nice compliment. People either like my voice or they hate my voice. And I am on the side of I hate my own voice, but I think most people hate their own voice. So it's probably okay. Anyway.
came up for me over and over again when I was reading your book about how like, yeah, I get that we all want answers. We want it to be clear and we want it to stay the same. But tough titties, like that's just not really.
Yeah, and I was
the
trying to
world
like,
is.
cover it in the book as best as I can, because I want people to read the book and like and feel that they have a lot of ideas, and some
Cash
different
machine.
things that they can pursue. But like, yeah, like no self-help book out there, no memoir has the universal answer at all, right? So like,
And be suspicious if they say that they do.
hell yeah, exactly, right?
If
So like,
somebody says they're an expert,
yeah, like really? Okay.
it's a cult. It's a cult.
Exactly, right away. That's a necromancer. That's not a wizard. Necromancers are okay too sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine.
No necromancer hate. But yeah, so it's like, it's really, you got to be careful to not latch onto anything as if it's like burn your idols, right? It's just like,
right.
Don't take don't take anything as gospel. And especially, yeah, with that ambiguity, I've written a whole entire book basically that says, here's a whole bunch of ideas, but also like, good luck. Because like that's the best you can do. I can't tell you what to do universally in here because I change all the time too. Like right now I'm doing 2007 90s queer with my plaid shirt with a hood and my Zelda t-shirt. Yesterday I was wearing a long black dress with a little overall jacket. Go with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just go with the flow.
And it's so interesting how it's like we're allowed to change. Like, I mean, when you're doing cooking, you know, like riffing is part of the fun of it. And
Yeah.
like when it comes to fashion, riffing is fun. And then as soon as it comes to like anything even vaguely related to like
Yeah.
identity or your body, it's like, oh no, not that.
That's such a good point, actually. Yeah, because like, yeah, they're all, yeah, take a chance, like throw in some pizzazz. But then you try to do it yourself. They're like, oh, no, no, no. What would Jesus do?
Yeah,
First of all, Jesus would be like, you fucking rock, guys. I think Jesus was probably
uh,
pretty cool.
probably, yeah. I actually mentor an evangelical teen, and I
Yeah.
remember one time he was like, "Well, I don't think you should get any more tattoos." And I was like, "That's cool. You can think whatever you like. It's my body, and I'll get more tattoos if I want to."
Yeah.
But what makes you think that? Like, where does that come from? And like that reframing of like, rather than me getting mad or me being offended, but being curious about like, huh, intriguing that you think you get a say, 15-year-old.
Yeah.
What's that about?
So one of my
Led
favorite things
us to
too
have a
about,
much,
oh,
oh,
sorry, what was
sorry.
that? Yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, it led us to have a much more interesting conversation about
Yeah.
bodily autonomy and who gets to tell other people what to say or think or do.
Yeah. Well, what I really love about having that sort of conversation with adults, especially like really traditional conservative adults, even even some that are more centrist and maybe whatever, is for me, I look at every opportunity as to try to be a teaching opportunity the best I can, but also as a little queer gremlin, I love trying to like possibly crack an egg. So, if
What?
you're talking to one of those ultra conservatives and they're bringing up these things and you're asking them, okay, but why? But why? But why? Almost always you start to see a certain point when the gear starts turning and they're in their head going, yeah, why? And that's my
Hmm.
favorite facial expression is that even if we walk away and like he doesn't fully support trans people per se, but I got that one little look of like he didn't actually know how to answer the why and the cogs were turning. You did good.
Moments for critical thinking are precious for
They
everybody
are,
in
yeah,
all things always.
really they
Like,
are, yeah,
yeah, I think, and I mean, and what is the polar opposite of that static, secure, like authoritarianism?
yeah,
Curiosity,
yeah,
right? And
that's
like
true.
nuance and like exploration, like all of these things that are about sort of trying things on and discarding them.
Trying to say we're like 45 minutes into this talk, and there have definitely been some funny points, and I'm glad we're watching it, and it was a good selection. I'm just kind of shocked at how little they're talking about sex in the talk about being non-binary sexy. Like, shouldn't we actually be like talking about sex? Who are you? Why are you from the Thorpes? What's going on? Why did I just have a flashback in my head to a more complicated time? Yeah, this isn't a workshop. Queer sex experts. But I mean, that's what you get with queer sex experts, right? They don't actually talk about sex. Written, both of these people have written entire books about sex, and they're not actually talking about sex.
Yeah,
Without shame, without feeling like that is inherently a bad thing.
exactly.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. There was a piece in your book where you like complicated the idea that you can't love others until you love yourself, or like the do or do not, there is no try. And I guess I'm curious, like, what are some ways that you were able to
Can't love others
practice
until you can't love yourself.
self-compassion?
That's true, actually.
Especially when you were first diving into understanding yourself more fully and like maybe hadn't gotten a full handle on it yet.
Yep. Honestly, for me personally, it was finding community was by far the biggest thing
Mm.
because if I can't love myself, other people seem to think I was really cool. So I wanted to spend time with them. Like, why do you think I'm cool? What's the big deal? So the more that I remember when I first came out too, like I was running my sex blog. I was getting tons of emails about it from my local community and things like that. And rather than pulling away from that, uh, I decided to pursue it a little bit more in terms of like looking for what others were kind of seeing. Because you're right, like if you're gonna wait for you to love yourself, like that's first of all, that's not fair to you. And like
And what does that
and
mean?
what does that even mean? Yeah, what is the metric for that? And what's the metric for that for people who are neurodivergent? You know, like I have severe depression, ADHD, and CPTSD. I don't love myself very often sometimes, right? But like that doesn't mean I'm not worthy of it. And that doesn't
Mhm.
mean that I can't have good experiences. So, you know, I think that like the biggest point of it though, which is kind of unfortunate, is like I think it does take a degree of community, at least somewhat. It doesn't have to be entirely community, but like the more that you're around other people, the more that you're around seeing the vulnerability of other people, and the more that you're around hearing other people talk about their struggles, the more that you're hearing, oh, I felt really bad, like, oh, I feel like a shitty person, or oh, I don't feel attractive. You're going like, holy crap, it's other people too. It's not just me.
Yeah.
It's
They're
not
struggling
just
to love themselves.
you.
I'm struggling to love myself. We're showing each other how to love each other and then turn how to love ourselves. So it's kind of this
That is actually
exchange
a
of skill,
realization that
right?
a lot of
Because
people
like
need to have.
compassion isn't necessarily like
You know what?
compassion can be learned and compassion can be
You know what really drives me crazy about this stuff is there is actually good advice coming out of this that people like would benefit from that's not queer. Like the whole idea of like you have to love yourself before other people are going to love you. Yeah, that is actually true. The idea that you have to be comfortable with yourself before other people are going to be comfortable around you. Yeah, that's actually true. Like and the idea that like that happens separate from whether or not someone else validates you, again, it's true. And so I don't know, man. It's just a shame that people that they do actually legitimately have some good advice that's actually good for everyone, but then they cover it in all this queer bullshit and it gets completely distorted.
easier to give out than it can be to receive, let alone to give to yourself. So I feel like self-compassion, you kind of pick up as you're showing it, in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
Um, Also therapy. My God. I'm gonna be completely
Yeah.
honest. I've been seeing my counselor at Out Saskatoon for like I think going on 7 years now, and they're delightful.
Seven
And like
years.
if it weren't
Holy
like if it
shit.
weren't for that counselor, oh my God, like just having the other person to kind of talk to a little bit, right? Um, but like even with the practicing self-compassion too, it's like, you know, part of it too is like it's again it's easier said than done, but if you can do it to the best of your ability, starting small, you get a negative thought, challenge it. You don't
Mhm.
have to do it every single time because that's impossible.
Brian, do you know what the goal of queer Marxism is? Because I've been letting go of I've been letting you dunk on the libs in my chat, even though I really dislike it when people come in here just to dunk on the libs. So we're gonna do a quick pause, and I want to see how much you actually know. Have you ever actually learned anything from these people? Do you know anything about them? What is the goal of queer Marxism, Brian? Pop quiz for you. If you don't answer, I'm banning you for the rest of the stream, so you're not going to be able to talk no more in my chat. Do 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 dun 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 bum bum. Brian, what is the goal of queer Marxism? What is the goal of queer Marxism? If you do not answer, you will be banned from my chat for the rest of the stream. Maybe you can come back tomorrow and tell us the definition of queer Marxism. But I want to see how much you know since you've spent so much time dunking on the libs in my chat this entire stream. What? Nope. Nope. Wrong. Wrong. Nope. That's not it. That's not it at all. Does anyone in the chat want to tell Brian what the goal of queer Marxism is? No. No. That's not what it is. No. 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 Does anyone else want to tell Brian what the goal of queer Marxism is? And the reason we're doing this exercise is we are not watching this to dunk on the libs. Dunking on the libs accomplishes nothing. It just helps you feel morally superior until you realize that you don't fucking actually know what you're fucking talking about. The goal of queer Marxism is to abolish normativity. What is another name for normativity? The goal of queer Marxism is to abolish the gender binary. True. What created the gender binary in the first place? True. They do want to abolish gender. They want to abolish gender and the nuclear family. What are these all words for? They want to abolish categories. They do want to abolish that. But really, the answer I'm going for is that the goal of queer Marxism is to annihilate capitalism. They say this over and over and over and over and over again. Rip capitalism. It's okay. It's okay. Where you get points for me is you answer the question, which most people don't do when I put them on the spot. You're also kind of owning it in some respects. So we'll allow that. But Brian, seriously though, the goal of this is to learn what these people believe. It's not to spout conservative bullshit talking points in my chat. And so if you have questions about what they believe, like, please ask them. If you have insights, then we want to hear those. But can we please keep the dunking on the libs to a minimum, because it drives me effing insane. And the reason is that it never accomplishes anything. You got a lot of good answers in the chat for the goal of queer Marxism, so hopefully you learned something new today. Well done, guys.
Possible, right? I get a ton of negative thoughts during the day. Some of them you go, yeah, and you move on, right? Some of them sit and they stick with you a little bit, and that sucks. But if you can start to practice slowly but surely, here's a negative thought. Oh yeah, well, fuck you. Here's a positive thought. That does it makes a difference. It's a small way of doing it, right? Whether you're distracting yourself or taking a moment to even sit down and go like, okay, I feel really crappy or whatever here. But look at this art that I did. Or, oh, I feel really crappy here, but look at all these cool pictures I have with my friends and family, and like they all really like me. You're replacing that negativity with affirmations.
It's all good, Brian. Thank you.
And slowly but surely that's gonna start to do a little bit of rewiring, in the sense that like you'll get to a certain point when you're going like, why am I having this negative?
Why can't, like, this, honestly, points to Brian. Can everyone give Brian a round of applause? Because points to him for taking it like a man and for saying, I'm going to do better next time. I appreciate this. Most people who come into my chat to own the libs, they don't do this. They cause even more problems. They blow up. They have a toddler level hissy fit meltdown in my chat. Brian was just like, all right, I'll do better next time. Hey man, props. We appreciate that. Welcome.
Thought, hell no, I'm great. And that'll start to happen little bits here and there, right? Yeah.
It's so funny you say that. So for a long time, I thought that I was dealing with like body image stuff. I was like, oh God, like I probably don't really like myself, right? And I don't know. It's honestly, I did a lot of psychedelics, and at some point, like every time I would do mushrooms, for example, I would be like, okay, this is going to be intense. Like, we're going to go in here. We're going to discover some dark, horrible thing in my psyche. And every single time I would just roll around in the dirt, giggling to myself and listening to podcasts about the history of refrigerators or whatever. And it was like, oh, okay, wait, I think I actually like myself. Like, I think I'm good, actually.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And like, honestly, I thought that was never going to happen. Like, I didn't think that this world would let me ever be that way. And it didn't happen because I compromised with a society that wants me to fit into a narrow little box.
Right.
It happened because I formed community with so many other communities, like not just ones that were queer, not just ones that were other women or other anarchists, but like I got to know my next door neighbor who runs an auto shop. And at some point we started talking about our experiences with substance abuse. And like, I was like, oh shit, here's a way that we bond. And like, here's an experience that we have in common. I would never have thought that I would share this intimate, vulnerable thing with someone who is like a 60-year-old, possibly libertarian Asian man, and yet here we are, and we became really good friends. And like, I think that I mean, not to be a conspiracy theorist, but like, I think that's what these fascist governments don't want us to do.
No, they don't.
Like,
yeah, you're right.
Not only accept that nuance in ourselves, but accept that nuance in each other and be like, hey man, I know that at the beginning of the pandemic, you weren't sure that COVID was real, but you got there, and I'm
Yeah,
proud of you for that. And like, we can
yeah,
hang and we can talk about Subaru parts or whatever, like
but
it's
yeah,
nice to see that kind of community forming. And I do agree that I think that is one of the strongest ways we can
yeah.
develop that self-compassion, um, and just a stronger community more
Yeah.
generally.
Well, especially considering I remember one of the key points that kind of made a big difference for me was going like, okay, so I'm spending tons and tons of my time in my advocacy lifting up all these other gender nonconforming people. I'm going to their appointments with them. I'm advocating for them for their doctors and stuff like that. Why am I not doing that for myself?
Yeah,
Like that, and there just came this moment of realization of just like they're not different than me. None of them are
right.
better than me. I'm not better than any of them. None of them are more deserving than me. I'm not more deserving than them. But I'm treating everybody else like I'll give them all of these resources and all of this support. But when it comes to myself, I'm not asking for help. I'm not advocating for myself, and I'm getting down on myself. And that kind of sucked, and
Yeah,
just that kind of realization. And then in turn seeing, some of them starting to offer help in various different ways too. Learning to like take that and accept that rather than try to like push it away. Because again, depending on where you are and who were raised with, like I was raised by, I was in a military family with the Canadian Forces. We were in Ontario, then we went to Alberta. So
hmm,
like very, very stringent, like do it yourself. You don't need no help. Lift yourself up by the bootstraps. And that still kind of carried on a little bit, even towards like, the queerness and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just that moment of kind of being like, huh, like I got to be nice to myself too, because nobody else knows what I actually need. I know what I need. So
yeah,
if I'm not gonna do that, if I'm not gonna ask for what I need, if I'm not going to be there for myself, then who else is going to? Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Um, one of the things that you mentioned kind of to that effect, in how do I sexy, right?
Mhm, yeah.
Um, is mantras and like having like little phrases that
Yeah.
you can say to yourself. And before we take questions, or just talk
Ooh,
further, um,
questions. I
what
want
is a
questions.
mantra that you found helpful? Um, well, actually, I'll split this up. What is a mantra you found helpful in the beginning, and what is a mantra that you find helpful now?
Hmm. So one of the ones I found helpful in the beginning, I'm actually going to go back to my book because I actually had it in the book specifically. And I don't really use it as much anymore because I'm kind of in a bit of a different spot. Hang on a second here. You would think that I would know what page it's on, but no.
I don't know what's in my books, honestly.
I
I just
mean,
write them, and then it's
exactly.
gone.
And you work on it for so long. I don't know about you, but you get to a certain point in time where they're just like, how are you feeling about it? I'm like, fine, I don't want to look at it anymore. It's
You
Yeah.
know what?
it's done, right?
That is one of the benefits to writing books quickly. I will say that. Like I've always written books quickly. Every single book I've ever written has been written in a matter of weeks. It hasn't been a matter of months. It's been a matter. And the books that I have that get a prolonged like me working on them, I have to take a break from it. This is why you're not seeing progress on the re-education book, because I had to stop working on the re-education. I had to. It was just not, it was not coming out the way I wanted it to, and so I had to just pause, and then I went and did other books. And so it's like I completely feel that actually.
Um,
And I will go back to the re-education book. It's an integral part. It's going to come out later this year. I know it's a little bit later than I wanted it to, but that's just the way it goes.
yeah,
Yep.
okay, so the big one,
It aligns with something I'm doing later this year.
for me was that I have complete and utter autonomy over myself was a really
Mm.
huge one for myself because at the same time, as um there came a degree of like finally like centering myself, prioritizing myself, um, and taking that power back was crucial, to me even getting remotely to where I am today. Learning about what autonomy is, learning about thinking and reflecting about like all the ways that that was like taken from me, and given the, like you don't want your aunt to kiss you, but just let her do it. It's family, right? It's just like
Mhm.
there's all these little tiny things when you're growing up that you have to let the teacher touch you if they want to touch you, even if you don't want to be touched. Like all these little autonomy things that we're not allowed to have. And then we come to adulthood, um, and there's this weird degree of still that like what am I allowed to do then? So I'm 18, you say I'm an adult and I can do whatever I
Mhm.
want. But what does that mean? Because like up until this point, I couldn't go out when I wanted to go out. I couldn't hang out with who I wanted to hang out. I couldn't do what I wanted to do. I had to behave different ways in different environments. So what the hell is autonomy? So
Right.
that was huge to me, was learning what that word was, and then um learning to basically do what I wanted, I guess, for lack of a better word. Um, and I think that that's kind of crucial when you're first starting out, is like giving yourself that permission to say like, oh, but should I? And like, I don't know. But like, if you're worrying about what your boss is going to think, what your community is going to think, what your parents are going to think, to also kind of think about the fact that like, would something really bad actually happen? And do I care?
Mhm.
Is a big question, right? So for
Yeah.
me, it was like, if I lose my job because they don't like trans people, um, what's there for me, and what's the important thing that I can do for like autonomy? What choices do I have to make? Same with my family and questions like that. And for me,
Well, Brian says they speak of power as it is a religious belief because power is at the core of what their belief system is. These are radical revolutionary socialists. And so, how they see the world is a perpetual power dynamic between bourgeois, proletariat, oppressor versus oppressed, capitalist versus non capitalist, non private property owner, whatever it is. And so, the power is at the center of their worldview. This is why they're into BDSM. This is why they're into kink, because this allows them to act out power structures in a way that's not being oppressed by capitalism. So they believe capitalism is the ultimate power. Capitalism oppresses everything else, it takes over everything else, and the world is a perpetual power dynamic based on capitalism.
me personally, it always came back to I can't do what's expected of me anymore, because like it's just that's making me miserable. I was having trouble with like
Mhm.
massive suicidal ideation at that point in time too. And I was like, I'm not going to survive if I keep trying to like do everything for everyone else. So yeah, the big one for me that was hugely helpful was that like I have complete and utter autonomy over myself at the beginning. Yeah.
Do you have one that you like a lot now?
It is, I do, and it's actually very, very basic, but it's huge for me. Is I'm doing my best.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, though, that's
Yeah,
solid.
and it applies to so much about like, everything that I'm doing. I've had lots of guilt and shame about being ADHD with the way that I was raised, with people like always, you're what's wrong with you? Why can't you pay attention? You're lazy. Do you even care? Why are you so disrespectful? All these projections that are put onto you for what's essentially like you like a developmental disability, right? So I have all of this messaging inside that's still very anti ADHD. I have all this message inside that's still very anti queer and trans and stuff like that. Or am I advocating right? Did my book cover everything that it should have covered? Am I forgetting anybody? Did I say something that it really may upset somebody? I want to be open to all those things, but also if I really obsess about that stuff, that's going to destroy me, right?
Yeah.
So it's like,
Perfect is the enemy of done is definitely
ex
one of the things I
right?
say to myself all the time.
True.
Yeah. So in
Perfect is
order
the
to even
enemy
get
of
through the day
done.
lately, I'm doing my
True.
best is a huge thing for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about like what mine was. I mean, I guess one from my past that I still use pretty frequently is don't treat someone like a priority.
Hang on. See, now Brian's asking questions. This is a good thing. How do the genderqueer usually feel about free will? They believe they have ultimate free will. I mean, they're nihilists. They believe they can do. They believe they make all the choices in their life. They can do whatever they want. They don't believe in like, I was destined to do a certain thing or things like that.
Who treats you like an option.
Yeah.
And when that was first said to me by one of my best friends, I was very specifically thinking about it in like romantic relationships.
Yeah.
But the more that I've spread that to like my friendships or community activist relationships, communities in general, the more I've been like, oh, actually, like this is sort of showing me a lot of issues of entitlement in all of these different
Yeah.
types of relationships. And that you know, these things take up time and energy. And if I'm going to be
Yeah.
giving my time and energy, then I want to be doing that for people and groups who are excited about that and like, you know, are like recognizing it,
Yeah.
even if they can't give it back. That's
Yeah.
okay. It's just like it needs to be seen on some level. And I think like as an activist, I have a lot of like back and forths with myself about that, where it's like, oh well, you know, it doesn't matter that nobody thinks of me when it comes to consent culture because it's important that everybody is having the conversation. And that's true, but also it does kind of annoy me.
That's yeah, and
Like
I think that's fair.
it is
Well,
irritating
Yeah.
that something that came
where I land on it, Brian says I struggle with where I land on free will versus destiny. Where I land on it is that, and I know it's not the topic of this, but you know what? It's my show. I'll do what I want. Um, is that I believe we all come into this experience with a purpose. We are supposed to learn certain lessons. We are supposed to meet and interact with certain people. We've made agreements before we even come here about the type of experience we're going to have, you know, different things people are going to do to us, different types of lessons we're going to learn, all that stuff. But ultimately, we have free will. So we can if we want to make choices to deviate from the plan, as it were, we can do that. If we want to ignore all the spiritual like wisdom that our guides are sending us to say, go over here, go do this thing, go over here, go do this thing, go over here, go do this thing, and we're like, no, I don't want to do that thing. Like we can make the choice not to do that thing, even though spirit is trying to guide us in that direction because that's actually the path we're supposed to be going on. We can go over here and do something else. What I have consistently found is that when I'm on the path I'm supposed to be on, things are easier. If I go off the path, I can do that. But my life is going to be a lot harder if I do that. So sometimes you just got to suck it up and be like, okay, I'm being guided over here for some reason. I'm not supposed to be here over more. Like it's too hard. Like there have been so many times in my life where I just outgrew a situation or I outgrew a relationship and it just wasn't satisfying anymore. And you try to hang on to it to a certain extent, but like at some point you just got to say, no, I'm just not supposed to do that anymore. I'm supposed to go over here now because that's where it's guiding you. No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. These are not narcissists. Anyone who thinks they're narcissist or throwing the word narcissist around way too lightly, stop doing this. You do not see narcissistic tendencies in that group. You are making shit up right now. That makes you no better than them. This is the opposite of narcissism. These people have no self-esteem. Stop listening to people who say, they're all mentally ill. They're all narcissists. They're all cluster B. It's all bullshit. There are real problems here. And there are real things these people believe, and there are real mental health problems that they have, but it's not that. This is correct. A major theme of critical theory is lived experience, and that comes as part of storytelling. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. The human experience is the human experience. People have journaled about their experience the entire time human beings have been able to read and write. There have always been people talking about their experience in the world. We do not fully understand the human experience if people cannot tell stories. So saying that every time that someone tells a story or talks about their life and their beliefs, it's narcissism, it's so stupid. And it's so kind of like elementary and it's so off base and it's just like, shut the fuck up, honestly.
Came out of the conversation of a couple of queer femme submissives about the kink community and the poly community has been desexualized and defanged, the fact that we were both like really into philosophy and Foucault in particular,
Oh,
and
I'm
all
shocked
of
they're into
that
Foucault.
analysis of power
I am
was
shocked.
taken out of
I say.
consent culture
Yeah.
when it got to universities, which is like, what? It's so interesting, you know, to like look at that. And like there is that part of me that's like, it's fine, it's fine. It's good that people are talking about it. And there's a part of me that's like, man, you know, like, God damn it.
I think that's fair, honestly. Yeah.
And then I guess one that I use a lot now, and again, I've used this one for many years now. You make time for what you care about, which sounds shamey at first. But the more that I thought about it, the more I realized that I use that to look at, well, what am I spending my time on?
Yeah.
Like, if I want to think of myself as someone who crochets, but I never make time to crochet, maybe that isn't something I want to do.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, true.
You know, or like there was a long time where I was really mad at myself because I wasn't reading enough books. And I had identified as a reader for so long, but I also have ADHD, and I've been on social media for such a long time that my attention span was shot to shit. And so I was like, well, if reading is important to me, if that is something that I really want to prioritize in my life, how am I going to do that? And so I found a couple of different ways. I listened to a podcast about like getting yourself reading more often. I joined a couple of book clubs. I, you know, started to share what books I was reading, to like kind of pressure myself a little bit to like keep showing progress.
Oh, Barbie, I knew you were going to have an issue with this because you called them narcissists earlier, which you're wrong about. They're very self-focused. They're literally doing a podcast about what they believe in the books that they've written. Do you want people to do a podcast about what they believe and books that they've written without talking about themselves? Does that make any sense at all? No, it doesn't. Please be better than this. It is not an unhealthy level of self-focus to do a podcast where you are talking about a book that you wrote and your views of the world. This happens every single day, all over the internet. And it's like, are you going to tell me that every single person who's ever done a podcast on the internet is a narcissist? That doesn't make any fucking sense. You guys have got to stop obsessing over narcissism. And I'm going to be very honest. This is a self-esteem issue with you guys. This is a self-esteem issue. If you look at other people talking about their lives and their experience and their perspective, and you go, narcissist, self-focus, that's because you have self-esteem issues. And that's because you don't feel comfortable talking about yourself. And that's because you don't feel comfortable sharing your ideas in the world. And so it is offensive to you that other people are doing that. You don't have to like these people. You don't have to agree with their ideas. I don't like these people. I don't agree with their ideas. But them telling their story and expressing their ideas is actually more human than what people do when they go, narcissist, narcissist, narcissist. We are human beings. We have experiences. We're supposed to tell stories. We're supposed to have conversations. If you get called a narcissist every single time you talk about yourself and your ideas, that doesn't make fucking sense. And it was what you're saying, and now you're just backtracking because I called you on your bullshit. So maybe you want to look internally to yourself and find out why you have such a problem with other people talking about what they believe.
And like now I went from reading maybe a book a year to reading like 40 books a year. And it's really because I decided that is something I want to prioritize over going to bars, you know, or watching TV. And like, that's not to say that going to bars and watching TV aren't valid choices for other people. But for me, I was like, oh, Yeah, I'm happier if I follow what I want, if I look at what I want to do and I make space to do those things.
Yeah.
And, in exchange, also, it does make me look at other people's behavior sometimes. And I say, oh, like you're telling me that this thing is important to you, but then you're not doing it. So you're like not making time to have quality time with me or to follow through on this commitment or, and like, that's okay. If that's not your thing, that's fine. But then like, that's a conversation about whether or not that should be on your plate as a priority if you aren't going to make it one.
I feel like this presentation is what it would be like to have sex with a queer person. And it is the most unappealing thing in the world. It's just like, this is what it's like. After you fill out your consent form to have sex with a queer person, because you have to fill out a consent form, the purple-haired woman actually wrote a whole book about consent. Then it's just conversation and overthinking and conversation and overthinking and overanalyzing and all this stuff. And it's like, are we ever actually just going to have sex? Like, no, you have to go through 15 rounds of fucking therapy before you actually do anything. And then it's not even penetrative sex because they don't want to do that and they want to talk about their feelings of penetrative sex and all that bullshit. So stupid. So you're bringing up things that have no relevance to what we're talking about. I promise you that if you're bringing up shit based on your own, this is actually more narcissistic. This is the part where I start to get angry at conservatives who are learning nothing. This is actually more narcissistic than anything these people have said on the video. I came in late and I came into the chat and I made it all about me and the things I care about, and I didn't even bother to find out what you guys were talking about. I have no idea what this is about, but I just barged in and I started declaring things in the chat even though I have no fucking idea what's going on, and I think everyone else should listen to me. And if I get called on my bullshit, I'm going to make some fucking excuse about why I couldn't be bothered to understand what was actually going on. I couldn't be bothered to ask questions. I couldn't be bothered to, hey guys in the chat, what are we watching right now? What is this about? Couldn't be bothered to do any of that because I had to make it all about me. That's actually more narcissistic than what's going on the video right now. Congratulations. You're the narcissist in this equation. My God, why is the chat is frustrating me right now because I'm so annoyed by the presentation. I wanted there to be more sex. There's not. It's just queer sex, which is not sex. Queer sex is like conversation and struggling and working through feelings. This is making me very deeply uncomfortable. I don't like having conversations about feelings when it comes to sex. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Can we just fuck, please? Like, why do we have to have a conversation about this? I don't want to share my fucking inner monologue right now. And it's ruining it. It's exactly. This is fucking intellectual blue balls. That's a really great way to put it, Sandy. Hey, we got a rant over on Rumble. Thank you for the $2. Let me see. Rhino said, I made a comment about narcissism and you schooled me and I listened and learned. Yes, you did, Rhino. Yes, you did. And I appreciate you. Thank you for sticking around.
Yeah, I found that to be a really helpful way of like not scolding myself, but instead just sort of responding to what was happening already.
Yeah. Highly related on the reading thing. For sure. I was having a big struggle with that too, but in the last, I think, 3 months, I've read 5 books, which is huge for me. And I'm currently reading, I don't know if you've heard about it, about Legends and Lattes.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I need cozy right now. I just finished The House in the Cerulean Sea, which was really good too. But yeah, like and very similarly, that did take a big thought of like, okay, so how much Netflix am I watching and how much games am I playing and like what do I really want right now? And you shift things around a little bit. Like I'm not really watching much of anything right now, but like I'm reading more and I'm still getting to game. You just gotta kind of that's great advice too. Yeah.
Yeah, like I started like I wanted to think of myself as someone who meditates,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I also really struggle to sit still for like 5 minutes.
Oh, couldn't do it.
So I was like, okay, but what do I want out
Yeah.
of meditation? I want
Right.
a moment of
Exactly,
being very
Vince.
present.
Exactly.
I don't need silence. I don't need to focus on my breath. I'm
Hey.
actually a pretty good breather.
Vince, did you see that you made it into a James Lindsay tweet the other day? Because I think it was you who retweeted someone who said that James Lindsay was plagiarizing Adorno. And he was, by the way. James Lindsay blatantly plagiarized Adorno. And then someone took a screenshot of your tweet saying that James was plagiarizing Adorno. And they wrote a whole fucking philosophy paper on why James was actually not plagiarizing Adorno. And I was like, this is... It was like some philosophy graduate student that's sucking James's dick. And he wrote this whole diatribe about how, actually, even though this is exactly what Adorno said, James wasn't actually plagiarizing Adorno for reasons X, Y, B, and Z. And then James retweeted and he's like, yeah, some people are trying to say I plagiarized Adorno, but I didn't because someone wrote an essay about it. And it's just like, bro, we can actually look at the Adorno quote and we can look at what you tweeted and we know you're plagiarizing Adorno, bro. Come on. Yeah, enough talk. Can we just fuck now? Yeah, exactly. No more talk. I am an Aries. I don't want to talk about feelings. It does. It's like an awkward first date. Yes, we're experiencing what queer sex is right now.
In general,
Yeah.
That's one of the things I pat myself on the back of. I breathe well.
Well done.
Thank you. It's on my business card. But like, I realized like, oh, well, what if I treat watering my plants as my moment of meditation? That's a task that's going to take me
That's not
5
meditation.
to 10 minutes.
That's really not meditation.
I have to be in the moment because I have to water the plants. So I have to make sure that the water is going in the plants and not on the floor. So let me just not do anything else. I'll just be present watering these plants and like looking at their leaves and like checking in with them to see like what they need and do they have mites again, which they almost always do. And like that felt accessible. So rather than being like, oh, damn it, like fucking ADHD, why can't I focus? I was like, okay, well, maybe it's easier for me to focus if I am doing something with my hands. So let me just do it that way. I think that those kinds of like little incremental changes is part of why I feel like I like myself a lot more. Is I just stopped fighting it and I just said, hey, fuck it. This is who you are. So just be that.
And those little big picture, those little incremental changes is how you find your sexy.
Yeah.
You got it, you know?
Yeah, there you go.
I just realized it. Damn it. I looked in the meant that. There we go. I love that approach, especially with like you're finding mindfulness in whatever ways you can, right? And I feel like you can actually find a lot of mindfulness in even like self-expression, right? So like here you are, you want to feel hot, you want to feel sexy, be in the moment, pick out your clothes, put on any makeup that you want to put on. There's so much room there to just be and to like ground yourself and center yourself and find peace in yourself, right? That's awesome. Yeah.
Cool. I mean, like I remember when I realized I couldn't wear high heels anymore, and that was something that made me feel really sexy. And I was like, oh, this sucks. Like this thing that was like one of my symbols of like femme sexiness. I can't do, I mean, honestly, they're usually like Doc Marten high heel boots. So like they had a decent heel, but even so, my feet just cannot do it anymore. And that was really hard until I said, hey, but you know what's really sexy? Not complaining all the time.
No, you don't. You do not know people who meditate when they do needlepoint. Meditation is a very specific thing. It's about controlling your energy. It's about pushing your energy outside your body. It's about being completely present in what you're doing. Needlepoint is still, they're thinking too much. If they're doing needlepoint, I promise you, they haven't been able to let go of their thoughts and just be, because they're thinking. Now, I'm not saying needlepoint is bad, but needlepoint is absolutely not meditation. In order to, you can meditate in one of three ways. You can be sitting down in like an Indian style position, or like you know, with your legs on the floor in the chair. You can sit down in a number of ways as long as your body's open and you're comfortable. You can be laying on your back, or you can be walking. You can do walking meditations, but when you're doing a walking meditation, you shouldn't be doing it anywhere where there's like cars and things like that. You should be doing it like on a beach or something, because you need to be your energy needs to be out of your body. You need to let go of your thoughts in your head, and that's how you do it. Those are the only 3 ways you can meditate. You cannot meditate watering plants. You cannot meditate doing needlepoint. I studied meditation for a real long time. I used to meditate for like upwards of like 2 hours a day, and I did it laying down. Trust me, it's the best way to do it, I think, but with a cushion under your legs. Nope, not swimming laps. Nope, no. Sitting, laying down, or walking, that's it. Swimming laps, you still need to be conscious of not banging your head against the wall.
Feet hurt. That's hot, right? Like,
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Crocs, maybe not the sexiest, but goddamn, they're comfortable. And you know what? That's fine. Perfect is the enemy of good, you know, or done. Like, so I would rather that, you know, and like, I think being okay with that, just like being, our society doesn't want us to feel okay or to feel peace or to feel pleasure or to feel joy or to like ourselves at all. So doing that is like super defiant.
It is.
And
that's
I think your book is a really good way of like, I like that it encourages people to ask questions rather than saying like, here's the answers. Because I think a lot of self-help books tend to frame themselves as like, here's the answers to your problems. Read this and you'll solve your problem with this. And I think encouraging people to think more and to be okay with not having an answer today.
Yeah, because those were the
like
worst parts of my
super
early coming out, right? The worst parts of my early coming out was being told how to do it. Being told how to pass. Those were by far the worst parts. I don't want this book to be doing that. Like I want, you know, it's all about, more than anything, I just wanted this to affirm that, you know, here's all the things that you can do. And here's all the questions to ask yourself. Here's all the resources to start to like build towards like a more authentic self. But like you don't have to do anything, right? So it's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Except for buy my book.
You have to do that.
You have to.
I'm wondering if anybody has any questions. I've been checking the Q&A area and I haven't seen any. But if anybody has any, questions? Like, we'll just talk. So no pressure. But if you do have one or several, feel free to drop it in the chat.
Give me a second.
Yeah. Well, while they think about that, I'm going to ask the question, what are you doing this next week that you're very excited about in regards to doing sexy in some capacity? Without like, you don't have to give intimate details, but like, what's something that's like, yeah, this is really revving my engines?
Well, one of the things that I've been doing recently too is on my blog, on the sex blog specifically, I participate in February in something called February Photo Fest. And so the general idea is to post like a nude or a lewd every day of the month. I'm going to give myself permission
amateur
to not
porn
do that
star.
But I still want to participate. And so one of the things that like, you know, I've been kind of doing a little bit more with my partner, Fen, specifically, is trying to take like, you know, some nudes together. So we're going to take maybe a couple this week, but in this particular competition, or not competition, in this particular like photo event, it is by and large cishet people that like, you know, participate in it. So for us, that's like challenge mode of like, how queer can we bring this, and like how many different like degrees of sexy queer can we show through like lighting and through clothing and through positioning and all that sort of stuff. So it's been really fun actually to just kind of look at myself through a lens as well too here, like whether it's from my camera, from my
Literally.
perspective, yeah, from like my perspective or my partner's perspective, and to just play with my expression in that sort of way that's performative, but but is also quite like, we're trying to get each other turned on. We're trying to turn on the people who are reading the blog. We're trying to turn ourselves on. It's really fun right now. And so I guess that would be the big thing that I'm kind of doing this week. And which is why, like, I always try to encourage people that, like, so long as they're comfortable with doing it is like take nudes and lewds of yourself if you can, like whether it's in a mirror or a selfie or whatever it is, there's no right and wrong way of doing it. Right. So I found my angles for sure. But like I also try my best to like challenge, putting out the angles that aren't so like I'm confident in and posting those on the blog. I used to never post pictures of tummy or like soft peen. Like if I didn't have a raging erection, I didn't want it on the blog. No. That's ridiculous. Nowadays, like you're gonna see tummy, you're gonna see different forms of erections.
I think I did like a guide to dick pics because I was so tired
That's
of getting
awesome.
bad dick pics.
Fair.
And yeah, I was like, oh no, I'm super
We got to
into
the sex
soft
part?
peen. Like
Yeah.
I
Finally.
think that's super vulnerable and sexy, and like it's more mutual in a way. It's less of
Yeah.
a like, look at this, which I mean is also fun sometimes, but
It is, but
it's also it's an invitation.
I was
It
just about to
tells
say,
it's the
yep,
beginning of a
Yep.
story.
Dick pics are so
And
It
I
weird.
find that so much more interesting.
Yeah. That's a very good point.
Yeah,
love
so
that
I will
framing,
say,
actually.
when it comes to dick pics, please, God, stop taking, like, just in general, stop taking dick pics while sitting on a toilet. Like, it's been done. It's not new.
Men do
Yeah.
It is
that?
bad.
I will
The
give you
lighting
that.
in the
yeah.
Why
bathroom
would
is
you
usually
do
bad.
that? That's a
All I can think
horrible
about
dick
is that you're
pic.
sitting on the toilet taking a shit. And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that is not
Why?
my thing. I mean, maybe I'm sure there's people out there for
No!
whom that
I'm
is
sure.
like,
No.
wow, that's
No.
pretty cool.
No.
Not for me.
No.
Uh,
Disavow. No.
I think the thing that this week has made me feel the sexiest is my partner. My partner is moving in with me from Maine. We've
Nice.
been sort of together in a very life partnery sense for like 13 years.
Yeah.
But we've only like in the last year just said, I think we're actually in a romantic relationship. Let's just formalize that.
I
Oh,
love
yeah.
that.
Okay.
And they were saying like, hey, I'm finding myself drifting a little bit. I could really use some structure in my life, and like I have these skills, but I'm not really sure how to level them up. And like, I don't know, I feel like I want to get more into hobbies. I feel like I'm spending a lot of time just sitting around. And I was like, oh, are you saying to me that like you want me to lovingly boss you around and tell you what to do? Because nothing in the world pleases me more. Like, that is just the best
They're
thing.
getting into a
I
domestic
love
discipline
language.
relationship.
Yeah.
As much
That's
as
great.
I'm like an anarchist,
Yeah.
like there is something about like I struggle a lot with feeling like I know the right things to do, and if people just did the things that I suggested, it would just be better.
Yep.
Also, though, I don't believe in authority, so
What a conflict.
yeah, it's hard in this brain of mine. But like that was something that I was like, I've never felt so seen as my
Yeah.
partner being like, hey, could you make a spreadsheet of the skills I have and steps I can take to like go the next level on these skills?
Yeah.
It's like that is to me the hottest fucking thing.
Oh, baby,
Because
oh,
it not
baby.
only is something that my partner wants,
Yeah.
but it's something I'm good at. And so it was like it spoke to these two things in a way that makes me feel useful and makes me feel skillful, while also being helpful, I guess. And it kind of affirms my natural bossiness, which is
Yeah.
always nice.
Yeah, I'm
Gets
really glad
off
that we're
on
actually talking about this, because
spreadsheets.
that is a thing that I do talk about in the book as well too, is that like sexy isn't just about what you wear and how you're putting yourself out there, right? Just as you're saying here, like this kind of interaction that you're having with partner is what makes you feel really sexy too. I know for myself, like one thing that makes me feel like both sexy and just like affirmed and good is like taking on kind of more of a caretaker role. So like my partner is like a pup, right? And they need to go into pup space a lot. And so
What?
being able to like give them an environment where they're feeling calm and quiet, hand feeding them snacks, giving them little head rubs, bringing them tea. Like, it seems really
What?
basic, but like that makes me feel really good and makes me feel really well.
Mhm.
And then afterwards, they sometimes present themselves, and I go, "Oh, yay! Now it's time for Master's Treat." Like, so yeah, like, sexy can literally just be, how you're interacting with people as well, like your dynamic.
Did he say his partner is a pup? As in, his partner dresses up as a puppy and he puts him in the cage and he feeds him snacks? And then they fuck afterwards? Oh, he rubs his head too, of course.
So like my partner is like a pup, right? And they need to go into pup space a lot. And so, being able to like give them an environment where they're feeling calm and quiet, hand feeding them snacks, giving them little head rubs,
Pup.
bringing them tea. Like, it seems really basic, but like that makes me feel really good and makes me feel really well. And then afterwards, they sometimes present themselves, and I go, "Oh, yay! Now it's time for Master's Treat." Like, so yeah, like,
Now it's time
sexy
for-
can literally just
Now it's time for Master's Treat. Oh my god. Furries, man. Furries.
be how you're interacting with people as well, like your dynamic can be something that's sexy to you. Your personality can be something, your hobby can be something that's sexy to you, right? Like, you can find sexy in your own terms and pretty much anything. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like thinking of it as seeking pleasure.
Yeah.
And like again, like another one of the paradoxes of my mindset is like, seeking pleasure is really important, but overly seeking pleasure can feel very frustrating. I mean, living in the Bay Area,
Yeah.
I feel like I brush up against that a lot, where there's a lot of people who are really good party friends who
Mhm.
want to hang out with you when you're feeling hot and sexy.
Yeah.
And then if you're having trouble, they're nowhere to be seen. Or alternately, there are people who love you when you're in a crisis
Yep.
and don't want to celebrate your wins at all.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I think it's hard sometimes to find the balance of like, responsible hedonism is good, and
It is,
also everything in moderation, including moderation. Like, sometimes you should just do the thing that feels good.
Yeah.
As
That's
it harm
true,
none, do
actually.
as you will, right? Like,
Yeah.
and like finding that balance. One of the things that I do for pleasure is limiting how much I read the news.
Oh God. Yeah.
Because reading the news takes time away from my ability to enjoy my life.
Yep.
It is important to me to be up to date, but I am not a world leader. I am not going, like, my life is going to mostly stay the same and have the same level of crisis from day to day,
Right.
which is high. So why worry about it?
Well,
Like,
exactly. Especially considering, I often tell a lot of people, sometimes you get that criticism of like, why aren't you doing something all the time? Right? Why aren't you doing something? Why aren't you fighting? Blah, blah, blah. Well, like, I think you can agree, like, vulnerable minorities have been fighting all the time, forever. And so
Yeah.
in a crisis situation like we're in currently, there's very, 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 very little that like we can necessarily do ourselves. Like, this is the time that our allies need to be stepping up for us. And this is a huge crucial time because they're the ones with the numbers. They're the ones that, who the government's going to listen to about trans people? Cis people, not
Yep.
trans people, right? So the
Yep.
more the trans supportive cis people we have telling the government, hey, no, this isn't actually okay, holding leaders accountable, that's who has the power in these sorts of situations. So for ourselves, very similarly, like on my blue sky, and I love my blue sky, but I've muted I mute Elon Musk, I mute JK Rowling, I mute Trump. I can't see it right now.
Are they
It's
actually on
causing
their blue sky?
literal panic attacks every 5
Elon
minutes.
Musk is
and I
on
can't
blue
deal with
sky?
that. So
Really?
just like, as we were saying there, my mantra is I'm doing my best. And what doing my
Yeah.
best for me is writing my books, It's putting out trans positivity on my blog. It's supporting my community when they need me. It's going to a doctor's appointment with somebody who's too scared to ask for HRT.
Thanks, Brennan.
That's what I can do. That's what I can do right now, and that's great. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
I see
absolutely.
Liberty is here. So
Liberty, she is back, so it looks like they're wrapping up the presentation. And you know what? It could have been spicier, but I'm still glad we watched it. Like I said, this was basically our experience with queer sex. We now know what it's like to have queer sex. There's a lot of talking and a lot of feelings and a lot of consent and a lot of rationalization and a lot of talking about how you were hurt in your childhood and apparently dressing up like a dog or something like that. So now we've had that experience and we can move on now. And I just want to remind people that I will be live again at 9 p.m. tonight with Jennifer for Disenrage. We are watching some, I don't remember what we're watching, but it's going to be good. Disenrage is a show that Jennifer and I do on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. where we do more spirituality stuff, and it's just a nice break, and it's just hanging out, and we watch cool videos, and we talk about them, and we talk about the bigger questions in life, and we don't talk about socialism or any of this other stuff. It's just a nice time. So you can join us at 9 p.m. tonight for that. Also, in the meantime, you can head over to my main Substack. That is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. Hey, I just posted an article earlier today explaining why queer activists rewrite things like the Bible. And if you don't believe that they're doing that, there is a video in the article talking about how queer activists are rewriting the Bible so that Joseph and his coat of many colors was gender non-conforming. Do you guys know that? Joseph with the coat of many colors was gender non-conforming and queer, and Joseph's brothers were the evil oppressors that were trying to keep Joseph down, but Joseph's father was affirming of his queer, gender non-conforming nature, and that's why he had the Technicolor Dreamcoat in the first place. And so there's an article about that on the Substack right now. While you're there, make sure you sign up as a supporter for $8 a month, $80 a year. I am 100% funded by you guys, so I can't do this without you. And you can join us in the supporter Discord for movie nights. You can join us on our Monday Zoom calls that we do with supporters and all that good stuff. That is all I have for right now, guys. I'm going to go take a little break, and I'll be back in a little while. Take care, guys. We'll see you soon.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you here?
That's difficult to answer.
To give you some idea.
I am not completely like other people.
What do you mean by that?
People dislike me because I am not completely like them.
trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.